It's kind of open. Do I? Way bigger.
For those of you online, can you confirm you can hear us?
Bigger than Maryland?
We can
They're
hear
gonna-
you.
Thank you.
It's longer than.
Oh my God. They already.
Get rolling when you're ready. All right, we're gonna get started.
Get started if you guys want.
Did you get a chance?
Ready or not, here we go.
It is a meeting. It's super informal. Welcome to our board meeting. Oh, you're right in the middle of it. That's the hot seat now.
Yes.
I want to see a bigger screen though.
This is the hot seat. This is, you have access to the private information on this side. The only thing is you can't.
Metaphor.
That's fine. I printed my new board, it's like they're about.
Oh, no. The whole budget though?
It's my coffee table.
Oh, yeah, you said that last time too, huh? Read and read, I can re-listen.
All right. Are you ready?
Ready?
So just kind of go ahead and share, just for everyone to know who's online with us is Trustee Corvalon. Hi, Trustee Corvalon. And Macy are online. And then Barb Hart. So hello to those of you online. This is live streamed. It's also recorded. We're just having a more intimate setup with our beautiful owl. Thank you, Trustee Sterling, for our incredible owl.
Sounds so weird out of context,
So
but
weird out of
I promise
context.
it makes sense to everyone here.
All right. This is our, Rita and I have been rolling tight with this PowerPoint, tried and true now for 3 years. So we're very intimately aware with this format, and you might be as well if you've been on the Board of Trustees. Tonight is your first work session for the 2024 budget. How we typically handle first work sessions is it's really a high level overview. So you did not receive in your packet, obviously, the spreadsheet that would have all of the line items and the overall budget. We really need to get feedback from you so we know exactly what we're putting into the budget. So on November 7th, you'll get the budget in its entirety and we can start to talk line by line. But we don't want to go into the weeds just yet because we really need to talk high level concept. Every slide, please ask us questions. Please don't wait until the end. Rita and I will primarily lead this show, but of course we have our incredible department heads and division heads here to answer any questions specific to their departments. Questions before we go?
Go.
All right, let's do it. So the agenda tonight, we have a lot to accomplish. First, we are going to talk about how we've incorporated the strategic plan into the 2024 budget. Rita will go over tax revenue, 5-year trend, and talk about reserve funds. We'll do a quick overview of capital improvement priorities. Those have been scaled back quite a bit because we are running a pretty bare bones budget. We have some questions on certain expenditures we want to talk to you about. We'd like to talk about the C&D program and some changes there. If you recall, we asked for your permission to release an IT contract, an RFP, so we'd like to talk to you about that finding. Nikki has, of course, her parks fund from the marijuana tax. We need to talk about how those funds will be allocated. I want to talk about 5 new revenue opportunities. And lastly, talk about some best ways to utilize ARPA funds and then end the session with any additional questions. So, strategic plan. So I noted each objective in the strategic plan and really talked about how we're going to make this happen. So the first one, of course, was specific to town employees. If the budget is approved, it takes us all to that minimum level. So for you recall, all but 6 employees were moved to their minimum, but you had that top 6 who had half done this year of what they needed to get to minimum, and then half would come January 1. Those employees didn't get a COLA or
Second half comes January.
the second half, right? In our budget, of course, we have employees who receive raises this year being eligible for merit. We're not doing COLA though, because we recognize the compensation study just moved everyone into kind of a COLA space. So if approved, you're bringing all employees within the compensation stage. For number 2, the budget does include the necessary funds for legal and engineering in order to allow them to continue to work on protecting town's water rights and evaluating options for water storage. So that was objective number 2. Objective number 3 talks about our plans. Again, if approved, this budget contains funding, whether it's grant match funding or just general town funding, for the following: the branding and creative identity plan, the water and sewer rate study, the comprehensive plan, multimodal transportation plan, the Parks, Recreation, Open Space and Trails plan, and that comes in the form of staff time by myself and Nikki, and then the Big Springs egress study. For number 4, we talked about, modernization and maintaining town infrastructure. This budget, if approved, has the completion of both safer main streets and the transportation improvement project. It has funding kind of through a series of different grants for LiDAR technology from JVA to evaluate all roadway systems. Josh has budgeted road base to really work on, of course, the foundation stabilization. And he has a capital improvement project in order to bring in funding for culverts so that we can ideally install them by town funding instead of asking the homeowner to take on that expense. We also have money set aside for Troy to work on the training and dissemination of information about emergency and disaster management and preparedness. Andrew has budgeted funding for asset management systems. Nikki plans to finalize the distribution of metropolitan football funds. And we have some funding available for some maintenance of town hall. Those are all requests within the budget, or the strategic plan. Number 5, we talked about evaluating revenue opportunities. So again, if approved, the current budget we're working on would have paid parking, speed cameras, fees for EV chargers, short-term rental regulatory fees, and a reinstatement of an occupational tax for liquor licenses. And I'll get into all those a little bit more. And then the last thing is for number 6, the last slide, we are recommending you hold back some of your ARPA funds, which can be used for affordable housing, whether that be through the development of, the match for, or incentives for developers. So we are encouraging you to do that. And then, of course, the peak-to-peak housing and human services is evaluating all the grants that will be coming before us.
And just objective 5 and objective 6 are the same, but objective 6 is all around that affordable housing.
Oh, thank you for catching
Oh,
it.
that's okay.
Thank you. Yes, that should be affordable housing.
Yeah, I was like,
They read
no.
the same. Yeah, that's affordable housing.
Yep.
One thing that was brought up recently to me, that the first area we'd like for your feedback is ongoing strategic planning supports. And so a company called Rocky Mountain Performance Excellence reached out to me. I've attended quite a few of their trainings, and they said, we really want to provide support to the town of Nederland to make sure that you continue to work towards your strategic plan, you start to develop your mission, vision, and values, and you create really a performance excellence model to work towards. They use the Baldrige program model, which is the only presidential award for performance excellence. And communities like Fort Collins were recent recipients of this award. So I put some information into the packet about this. But I think our question number 1 is there any desire to work with a company like Rocky Mountain Performance Excellence to continue to further our strategic planning and overall performance measures?
Let's get through the budget and then we'll come back to it.
Yeah.
We don't currently have it in the budget. Unless, so I guess what I would say is I think we're asking for feedback is anyone overly passionate about the consideration of partnering with Rocky Mountain Performance Excellence Group? And then if so, Rita and I would have to go back and add it into the budget.
What is it that you would,
Yeah.
I think that you're going to get from that process and then being a part of it?
Yeah, so it's really the consultant services ongoing. So instead of trying to pull Dole in when we need them, this is a company that all year long provides partnership to the town to ensure that we're continuing to evaluate best practices for strategic planning. The town doesn't have a mission, vision, or values, and so they would help us to develop that. And they would serve as kind of our ongoing partner.
It's a flat fee they're being.
It's a flat fee of $10,000 annually. So I think the question really is, would you like us to put it into the budget for you to look at on November 7th, and then you can decide later to take it out? But it would be helpful for us to know if we should incorporate it into what we provide you in 2 weeks or not.
I like seeing it in there. There's no reason
We
not.
can always take it back out.
Right, you can always take it back out, but right now it's not in there. So
Yeah, interest.
we want to make sure that
Right now.
when you look at the full roll up and you see what your budget looks like, we should know whether this is included or not, and then you can decide later if you want to take it out.
Sure.
It's their interest.
So that's fine to have it included, just as a part of it. My other question back to everyone would be whether or not it's a this year kind of a thing or a next year, right after that comp plan is done. So that's that's something to consider.
Yeah, I did inform Rocky Mountain Performance that we were in the middle of a comp plan, and it was his recommendation that this is actually the perfect time to bring their involvement in, so they're a part of that process.
Sure.
Now,
Sure.
Of course it is.
You don't say.
Never been a better camp.
that's just.
Paying me money now is
Pennies per day.
best time for it.
Is there any
Well-
way we can scrunch and get Kate in?
Of course, Kate, come on in. Or not, Kate, come on in. Okay. He wasn't gonna be here for very long.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and add in the 10,000, and then you'll be aware when
Did-
you look at the roll-up.
Did they give specifics of why they would be a good resource for us during the comp plan?
For
development?
strategery.
Yeah, so that they could be kind of supplemental partnership to help like identify where the strategic plan is gonna talk short-term, medium-term, long-term. They'll then dive into the specifics and help guide us through the specific breakdown. That's not what the comp plan is gonna do for us.
No.
It's not gonna take those goals and really become measurable with smaller scale steps to get to them. That's where this group comes in to say, okay, your goal is to increase revenue. Here's exactly how you're gonna do that.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like a very good support for staff in
It's
terms of
for
meeting,
staff.
yeah, big picture goals that the board has. But that doesn't stop me from being deeply suspicious of
Fair.
these sorts of firms.
Well, especially as we're about to look at a budget that's in the red.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
all right,
It's coming.
so we'll add this in, but just remember that this will be something you can evaluate when you finally get the full roll. All right, it's
I mean,
time.
Fort Collins, like, just for my part with the work I do, that we saw at CML too, like, they got some money, but they are definitely planning and doing and moving ahead in a very forward trajectory, and so that's an example, that's a pretty good example.
It is, and so Steamboat Springs is one that's probably smaller scale. I think he was kind of saying like, how great would it be, I understand there's a sales component.
It's a very sales
How
component.
great would it be if Nederland was really positioned itself to be a community of excellence, to be one that's performing to a space of excellence, because it brought on, and it is for staff. It's supplemental to us to help when we're deep in the weeds, to have somebody who's kind of pulled out to say, hey, on a more strategic level, here are the moves you should be making to meet that goal. And we might be a tad bit too close to the day-to-day operations to really recognize that perhaps some of the work we're doing or the effort we're putting into certain things may not be appropriate. And they help us to see that larger vision, and they're with us all year long. So it's not like it's a one-time fee and we never see them again. There's checkpoints throughout the whole process.
Would that be something where you all, the town staff might be open to adjusting, like when they give you, hey, you're kind of getting too myopic here, you need to focus on some big picture?
I think we're all looking for feedback. I think we appreciate when we have an opportunity to not necessarily have support to not look at like the finite details. I think our strategic planning session really helped to bring us out of our day-to-day to look at the bigger picture. I think we're teams of, in many cases, 1 or 4. I mean, we're really small teams. And so if there was someone to help provide us with kind of a roadmap for how to get to where we're all trying to get to, because I think in many ways we spin our wheels half the time, hoping that we get there. So I think there is some value in a organization to provide some strategic planning support.
Yeah, because then people in the community sometimes are critical that, nothing's happening, because you're busy dealing with just the day in the life stuff, and then sometimes some of those things we're working on
Right.
can't do.
And the director of Rocky Mountain Performance couldn't be here tonight, but he was happy to come on the 7th and share from his own words to you all. I think that's also, if we're going to put in the budget, I'd love to invite him to share from his perspective.
Let's get to the numbers. That's a $10,000 decision. We got $4 million
Yep.
decisions coming up.
Okay, so moving on to taxes, and I'll turn it over to Rita.
Okay, so before I dive into the numbers, I just did want to remind everybody that sales tax revenue is received 2 months in arrears.
Mhm.
So, and I apologize, the month I'm missing here. So next time we'll have a month on here, but the 208,550 was received in October,
Mhm.
and that is for August sales. Okay, So as you can see, we are trending about 4.4% above actuals when compared to 2022. However, when we compare it to the 23 budget, per the September financials, in the general fund, we're trending 17 below, and on all the other funds, we're about 4% below. So I therefore recommend to increase sales tax 4% over 2022 actuals for the 24 budget, which will decrease the budgeted amount for the general fund. And I want to explain that a little bit because that can be confusing. What we did in the 23 budget, we were very conservative. We budgeted 1% above the 21 actuals. But then what we ended up doing, we guesstimated that the 0.25% increase in sales tax would earn us $135,000, which was all going to the general fund. That is not happening. That's why really we're increasing actuals for all other funds, but I will be decreasing the budgeted amount in the general fund. So for example, year-to-date revenue so far collected compared to year-to-date of 2022 shows an increase of $62,000. So that's year-to-date. That is far from the 135,000 plus. So that's the reason for now I'm recommending 4% increase. However, just like last year, we started off with 3% and then changed it to 1%. So we'll get one more sales tax revenue here in November. And by the time you're presented with numbers, that percentage may change. Any questions on that? Good.
There, we were down one business for most of the year.
Well, there's, that's,
But
of
were
course,
there,
that plays into it, right?
yeah,
But
We're
other
running
than
it.
that, and what's interesting, if you look at this, in fact, what we just received in October is lower than it was the year before, even though we're at a 4.25%
Mhm.
increase. And there was one other month really low, the 148,000. That was
Yeah.
92%.
And what I would say is to Mayor Pro Tem Holt's statement is like, we can't narrow in.
Yeah.
So we can't say that being down that one restaurant is the reason we're seeing this. If we get it in a rolled up lump sum and we could go look at individual tax reportings, but it's really hard to narrow in and say this one situation is the reason that we're seeing this.
Yeah,
Because
this is Tanya. I would argue to say that people just go somewhere else. That the same amount of money is probably being spent in town that would have been. And that's just so we made less money with the tax increase for all of this year or just this last month?
No. We've increased by $62,000 over 2022 actuals. What has not happened, it has not been 135,000 increase alone in the general fund.
Right, because we made less money than we thought we were going to, sales tax wise, overall.
And what I also wanted to, the 17% in the general fund as of September, when I do my budgeting per year, I have to look at, okay, how much am I going to budget for each month, right? So, I don't know what it'll look like by the end of this year, right? The 17% could get worse or it could get better, but that's where we're at as of September.
Okay.
Okay?
And these are in order of month
Month.
starting at January, right?
Yes.
So it looks like we didn't actually lose that much when
No.
it comes to dead guy days in March, for instance, where like, it wasn't
Exactly.
that bad.
Yeah, exactly.
It was actually
But it's
April
interesting to me.
where we suffered.
Yeah.
Why was August so bad?
Yeah,
Is it because of NIDS, the restaurant being closed?
right.
That's hard to say.
Because it's not like there wasn't any traffic.
Exactly. And, maybe, these last few weeks have been nuts, maybe sales tax will be
Yeah.
great. Who knows? Okay, moving on. Property taxes. That is a fun one. Anyhow, what you're seeing, here is, so I did put in 3 scenarios down below, okay? So, under the 24 column, that is the current assessed valuation without any reductions. That would earn the town $791,715 of revenue. That is not happening this year. The current law is the next column, SB 22-238 is current law. And that would bring in $768,344, excuse me. And if Proposition H passes, 736,000 would be the revenue. So I do want to just, so we do have an attachment that I felt was very helpful, and that's slide number, what was it?
There was no slide, it's just an.
68 of 95 on this PowerPoint presentation. Anyway, so current law, that will only be in effect for 1 year. Okay, so right now that reduction is $23,000. Okay, so that would be in effect for 1 year, and then it'll go back up to the full assessed valuation. Okay, that's very important to understand that. If Proposition HH passes, okay, it'll be what you're seeing here. That's with a $50,000 reduction of the assessed valuation, and then it'll go on for another 9 years with $40,000 reduction. So there, the overall, obviously, loss of revenue is 56,000. I did reach out to the assessor's office because, there's talk about backfill. And I would love to have been able to budget for backfill. And they just responded that that's just an unknown for them, and they're waiting for answers as well. But in my opinion, that would be additional revenue we're receiving that we didn't budget for. That's always nice.
Yeah.
That's a nice surprise to have. So
I mean, but either way, we're making more money than we did last year in property taxes.
yes.
Yes.
So I did
Yeah.
want to point out,
Yeah.
so at the full rate, it's 30% increase.
Which is
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Right.
incredible.
And I mean, we all feel it, right?
But
We
even,
got our
even a
property tax
20% increase is.
Yes. Yes, and
Pretty
it helped the budget a ton, but not enough.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay,
I can see a tax sale coming up. It's almost-
Mm,
yeah, yeah. So now I just want to talk about the different funds we have in town. We have the government funds, and some of you, this is the same every year, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So in the government funds is the general fund, community center, and non-major funds, which include the conservation trust fund and the street fund. And there's reserves that we have that are part of the fund balance. In the general fund, it's 110,000 from the Boulder County Housing Authority for the Tungsten Village development in lieu of dedication of land for public use. And town staff is requesting this year that these funds be reserved for match funding for future GOCO grants.
What is what is the match for the GoCo grant again that you just applied for?
So we're not applying for the GOCO grant. We received some feedback that it was not the right time.
mm. Sad.
Yeah.
So we had to pull back.
From who? Who was the feedback from?
GOCO gave some misleading information. Our original grant officer had told us that while GOCO couldn't fund an entire building, the GOCO grant funds could be used for a partial fund of a building. And then the last GOCO meeting we had, just to confirm our application was solid, they brought in a different person in, and she was like, no way can you fund a building with this funding, and we don't have $700,000 available. So they said, if you take the building out of the GOCO application, you're great. Your application isn't strong enough with just the tennis courts and the rink, and you
What
should pull out.
about, okay, I'll talk to you later about it.
So unfortunately, we're not applying. We're meeting with GOCO, with the rink tennis team tomorrow to talk like strategy, because we got a ton of great community pledges and feedback and input. And so the other thing they said, they didn't want us to just reimagine the space for just pickleball and tennis. It has to include more.
What?
Yeah, they want to see a more comprehensive recreational corridor.
I like
and
that.
we would never receive funding if it was just for tennis, rink, pickleball. So swimming pool, here we come. So really what they had said is, our public outreach needs to be blank slate and say, reimagine this space and stop. They felt like we did in many ways. We guided the conversation too much towards, hey, we want to reimagine this for rink, pickleball, tennis. And we need to go out there and say, hey, there's this cool parcel. What would you like to do in it? And to say we'll be ready for cycle 3 is really unrealistic. We'd like to go for grant cycle 1 in 2024, which is July. So 10 months of pretty heavy strategic planning, but somehow we're gonna have to find other grant funding for that beautiful, incredible building.
So anyway, yeah, we're just asking.
So we're just
Sure,
asking,
yeah.
consider
Maybe hope.
holding this, whether it's for the rink tennis GoCo grant or any GoCo grant, we still have to come with heavy matches.
Yeah.
So our ask is
Mhm.
still hold on to this for a GoCo funded project and not, our hope is that you don't spend it elsewhere. You hold it for whenever the time is right.
I mean, I always thought that money should be leveraged for more money. We shouldn't just fritter it away on everyday expenses.
And that's, and really when we were going for rink, we really only ever wanted this money. We were still fine to leave the Eldora money for other things, but our ask is to consider holding this until the time is right to leverage it in other ways.
Well, sorry to hear that news. It's disappointing.
Yeah, we're super bummed. We walked away being like, what?
That's kind of our reaction.
Yeah, I mean, it was clear when they brought in a different woman, Nikki and I were both like, this is weird. Like,
Yeah.
why are we talking to you now about our application that we're literally ready to submit next week? And she practically in so many words said, don't even bother.
Wait, the wind was blown out of our sails.
I know, we both were like,
And I got really different feedback from the grant writing course that I just took today too, so.
Yeah.
I got
Good, good.
super, so,
It also feels like if they want more than that, they would need to give us way more money.
right, but then that's really what they said. They were, I mean, money was never a concern. When we were
Okay.
going for $1 million grant, they were like, whatever. It was never an issue. The money, the grant amount asked, they never questioned it. What they're saying is, can't be driven by our 4 organizations. We have to say, this is truly a recreational corridor, which is what we're calling it. And so it's gonna have rink, tennis, pickleball, pump track, whatever, biking, other things, other opportunities.
accessibility, you've got to talk about.
Yeah.
Other organizations.
But we have to go blank slate public outreach to say, we want to reimagine the space. What do you think? And then appropriately incorporate the realistic statements, because some might be a little.
Yeah, but we
far-fetched.
wouldn't just be saying that parcel of land at that point.
No, we're saying.
We would
because the
include
space-
like Moose Meadows.
Yep,
Yeah,
we're talking a full recreational corridor.
yeah, which is great.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the momentum's already started, so it was really important for our team to meet with rink, pickleball, tennis tomorrow. Because if we have 10 months, well, let's utilize every second of that 10 months. So we're not rushing last minute. So,
That'll solve it. Bocce ball.
Without, money wouldn't necessarily have to go.
Miranda, this is Tanya. I thought you said they didn't have $700,000 to give us. I thought you said
Oh,
something like that.
we're gonna go, in the next 10 months, we're gonna go pursue alternative funding for the building itself so that we can leverage GoCo for the recreational corridor. Because you're still gonna need the building regardless of what you do over there.
They weren't willing to fund the building.
They cannot fund the building.
Would they fund a roof?
They won't fund anything but bathrooms.
Gotcha.
Creative, but.
So if we can tie it in, because there's a trail right across the street, which gets into the whole,
Mhm.
everything. We can tie it into that.
Correct. That's why our team does not plan to lose momentum.
Yeah.
We just are switching gears.
What's the,
But please hold this money is what we're asking you.
Okay.
it makes sense. This sounds like this ambush could happen at any time. We could get a different person next time.
Yeah.
So this was our GoCo representative supervisor. So I think and not to speak,
Now you know.
our GoCo representative, she's wonderful. What I would say is she was out on personal leave for a very long time and just came back. And so I also don't know if perhaps while she was gone, there was information that didn't get passed on, but it felt like we were being given somebody else to be the bearer of bad news.
Yeah.
And Nikki and I were like, what's happening?
All right.
It's all right. We
That's
can-
the story there.
We have big ideas.
We have big ideas and we have time, because I did ask, I was like, so, are you running this annually? And they said, absolutely. The community impact grant is an annual grant no matter what. So I think
Okay.
we set our sights on July 2024,
Yeah.
So then,
which is in line with our strategic plan.
if you're saying though, July 24, do I need to budget anything?
I think it's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to say if we're gonna be ready. We really need to talk to our team, that team tomorrow. Because
Okay.
Nikki and I cannot do this on our own. We need rink, tennis, pickleball to get behind us. And if they're open to it, then yes, maybe we need to have that conversation, but.
And
for
I'm
now,
not too
it's
worried,
a
it's
no.
an in and out always, so as far as bottom line is concerned, but just if we're thinking, we should put it in. Anyhow,
We'll get back to you after tomorrow.
Well, I'm imagining 2025 Parks and Rec goals right now, so
right.
sounds
Go.
exciting.
Okay, also included in the reserves is the 36,500 from the parking lease with Eldora, which was approved by the board, so funds could be raised to be used for park improvements. And so all these reserve funds, they are held in a separate bank account, and obviously, as Miranda said, those will not be spent without board approval.
And we also integrate ProSab into obviously both of these, and so we really want ProSab to be the kind of the authority that also provides guidance on them.
What, for the park improvements, have you started to line item what some of those might be, or?
No, I think in many ways, Nikki, tell me if you feel like I'm totally outstepping, but we feel like these should always be leveraged for something else.
Sure.
Like there's no reason not to take what's sitting in reserve and leverage it.
And that's why I was curious.
So, you've got funding for maybe the rink, but then maybe there's another project like Chipeta Park Playground. Like this could be the match funding for Nikki's desires to go for Chipeta Park 88 Playground.
And that was my next question, like, would these be sort of earmarked for looking, because knowing that's part of your goals is to also get funding for that playground. So yeah, that's.
Yeah, so I think we don't have a plan right here and now, and I don't think we want to. I think as we start to secure funding and we recognize, okay, now we need $10,000 in match for playground, this is a space in which we may say, we'd like to pull it from this environment, because Nikki's not gonna just be sitting with that match funding in her budget.
Yep. Got it.
Okay, next, proprietary funds. So the town has two proprietary funds, which are the water and the sewer fund. And they are not your typical government funded by taxes type of programs and services. The idea is to pay for services provided through fees, which hasn't really happened, and we are having to use tax dollars and also have had substantial amount of grants as well as zero loans. So in the net positions of the water and sewer fund, we include reserves of 233,000 in the sewer fund for infrastructure improvements and expansion, and the 677,000 reserves in the water fund for the water infrastructure improvements and expansion. And again, those are all being held in a separate bank account combined with what's over in the government funds. That's it.
All right, it's improvement time. Capital improvement projects. So first things first, again, as I already spoke to, but police and emergency services is the $10,000 for Troy to train and educate residents on emergency and disaster management and preparedness.
Question, we don't have sirens yet, do we?
No.
We have no way to warn people if that tower goes down, if there's fire coming through. It sure seems to me that's one of the most basic things we can do from a preparedness side, is be able to warn people that it's hitting the fan.
Yeah.
You might have looked at the price of one of those.
No.
I think we should.
Seems like.
It's, I mean, I think, I can only imagine the crap we'd get if a fire came through and people weren't warned. I don't think we can count on that tower being the method.
So I'm going to go ahead and assume it's more than $10,000.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is my guess. And so I guess I'm just wondering, are you giving us direction to want to, so perhaps, I think I've told you all, but I think we all need to recognize that we're already budgeted into the negative. So anything we add in, of course, is just gonna make that. Would you like us to research it and bring it back to you?
Yeah,
for
because I think
consideration?
it's gonna be an either or, given their budget position. But I think it's so basic to be able to warn people to take cover or run for it.
Sure.
That I would rather do that than educate them and not tell them when the time came.
Okay. This was a strategic plan goal of yours, so.
so this is from Castle Rock, 30,000 a piece, one per square mile.
Remember, it's 1.5.
Yeah. I guess I would also maybe argue a little bit that if we're gonna do this, perhaps a cost share between Boulder County and the fire department, and not something the town has to absorb all by itself.
Yeah, I would say let's talk with emergency
Yeah, okay.
people at the EOC and
Okay,
see if we can get.
that's
some help.
And then,
Because it might not just be, we want to cover town, we might want to cover more than just town.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is specific to Troy or not, but what does training and education look like?
Classes put up here, bringing in some instructors for classes, people can come to on
Just for-
mitigation,
For residents?
yeah, evacuations, just sheltering. Also included materials, giveaways.
We are gonna talk to Wildfire Partners about, of course, trying to send out mailers, but this was really for that in-person spending time with Troy, Troy educating and trying to get out there to the community and have that touch base person to person preparedness conversation instead of just like, here's your flyer about fire mitigation. We're going to do that too. But there's a lot of value in having Troy here now to really sit down with people and make sure that they understand preparedness. And then, of course, hopefully, by the time this is happening, we'll have the CWPP done, that we'll start to evaluate evacuation routes, and we can sit down with people and explain, you know, here's the fire study that we did, here's how it impacts your neighborhood, and some evacuation
When is
conversations.
that looking to be finalized?
We're close. We have a meeting about it tomorrow, I think early next year,
Okay.
Q1.
Yeah, because if that can be also wrapped into the materials and the education, that'll be big. I mean, at this point, people have just been asking for, can I just get a mailer about it, right? And so you're taking it to the next level by offering the classes.
And still doing mailers, and we were gonna use the Everbright system to put out some messages to, and tips.
Oh, the text messaging? Yeah.
Yeah, because we have Everbridge that's typically used for emergency services, but Andrew brought it to notify people about work being done by Public Works, and we're gonna utilize it for emergency management as well. So if your phone number is registered with your utility bill account, PSA to the community, it's ideally, people should go register their cell phone numbers, because that's the only way we're gonna have that information to send out notifications.
Mhm.
And that's a quick email or call to Janet at Town Hall to make sure that that's in your account.
So what is $10,000? Because that was kind of an arbitrary number that we pulled out, right? What does that get us? What does $10,000 realistically get us?
But can we do like the farmer's market, like would they charge us? Can we do that for like?
They do charge us, not a ton, but.
They would charge.
But that is what I was gonna say. Is there a way to couple that with something that people would wanna go to anyway?
Then,
So that it can
go to where people
Yeah.
are. Versus hosting something that they probably may not go to.
It'd be kind of hard to put on a 60-minute class at a farmer's market.
Yeah.
It'd be more of a, it wouldn't be as, yeah, it'd be more of an educational opportunity where people are coming through.
I think we have to leave it up to the town to spend it wisely.
Yeah.
We just need to allocate
We-
it.
we
Yeah,
can, but
I mean, just for context, the
we just
typical,
ask, what's the $10,000 for? And that's
Yeah.
the answer. What?
if we do multiple mailers, you're looking at $2,000 just right there. I mean, and ideally, I think the thought is that people would walk away from the training with materials to take home. So I think printing is a large component of this, but also just, you know, all the things they need to be prepared. But yeah, I mean, I can't say that we've fully fleshed out the plan just yet. I would just say, you asked us to budget 10,000, we're doing that, but we probably need some time to finish, for Troy to finish FEMA training.
Yeah.
And to cultivate then the plan from there.
Good.
And one of the things I wanted to look at was sirens, because they've come a long way. Now there's sirens that are not only sirens, but then it's followed up by verbal messages and with specific instructions you have to do. I didn't put a lot of work into it just because I knew there was no money in it for it right now, without looking for alternative funding, grants or something.
Yeah.
Which there are grants for early warning systems too.
And even on the education side, could the OEM, county, and PD, could they be helping with some of this funding?
We haven't approached them about funding.
But it is a budget discussion. I'm sure, let's leave it in, would be what I think, and see where we end up.
Right, I mean, we're not gonna, just because we have it, doesn't mean we're gonna go wild and crazy, but if at the end of the year, we've only used half, fabulous, we've only used half. But this is creating funding for it.
We have a direct path for communication with Steve Silverman and Monica Weber down in the ODM in Boulder.
Mhm.
And they've got a lot to say about sirens and what works and what doesn't, especially in mountains. Good point. So that's all in Troy's lab, I think.
Troy with the bullhorn.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Sure, we'll just go door to door. Okay, so Public Works for Streets, so we have our final payment for the plow and dump truck that we currently have. And then, of course, you all approved a loan for water truck grader and flatbed, so we have payments on that loan.
Sure,
This is
blame
a
us.
5-year loan.
Y'all approved that at our request.
That was for 3 years?
5 years.
5 years,
Yep.
okay. The
Last
final
payment, May of 28.
28, and the final payment on the plow and dump truck is this year,
It's at the beginning of January,
Yeah.
yes. in
Beginning.
24.
2024.
2024.
Yes, ma'am.
Planning and zoning, $20,000 is the upfront cost for paid parking. That would be for kiosks and signage. And the initial implementation by Interstate Parking, which is who we have been recommending contracting with for these services. More to come on that side.
One thing I noticed in Boulder's Day, the lot above the RTD lot in Boulder got rid of the gates. It's 100% license plate recognition and app.
Yeah.
There's no hardware anymore.
So we do recognize that some people are going to want to slide their coins in and do it that way. We want to give options. So we're gonna do, so the way in which, so we're writing code right now that's before the planning commission tomorrow night that says if you're going to do paid parking, it's kiosk or the QR codes. And those are the only things that the town will allow. So it doesn't get all wild and crazy with all sorts of different other formats of paid parking. We can create uniformity throughout town by putting those stipulations in place. The planning commission is also looking at use by right. The recommendation by staff is use by right, parking lots or paid parking in all commercial zones, plus residential zones that fall within the DDA district.
Oh, okay, I like it, smart.
So the PC
So
will,
they can have on-street parking.
they could
inside.
use their lot. If you lived in the
Yeah.
DDA district and you want to convert your lot to a parking lot, charge for
Yeah.
it, you can use by right. That nothing would have to run through an SRU because we have clear guidelines then on how paid parking works.
Mhm.
So hopeful that that passes well. I mean, it's a discussion with the PC. They'll vote on it in November and it ideally comes to you in December in time for us to start paid parking right in June.
Cool.
All right. Grants. The match for Big Springs egress, just a reminder, we were awarded a grant of 750,000. JVA came in way under that. They came in at about 250-ish.
Well,
Yeah, I could look it up.
Are we gonna get what we need?
Yeah, I mean, they don't, again,
What happened?
we always went for the full funding amount, and then when the decision was, are you gonna build a route, or are you gonna study it, the money stayed the same regardless. So when the decision was made to
Oh.
study it, a study does not cost, it would be wild if we just spent $750,000 on a study.
sure.
So JVA is coming in at about 250. So this is the match that we believe will be needed for next year for it to finalize.
And we can't use the rest to build a building at the ice
You
rink.
cannot use the rest, you can study only.
Apply for the
You will have
next
to
phase.
reapply.
So at the end of this, what will we have?
You will have a final committed route.
Yeah.
Double ready.
Have to vote on a route next year, no question.
Yeah.
You have to, whoever the U is, the larger U. The BOT will have to vote on a route and that route will be designed. So it is shovel ready to then go for the funding to build the route.
It's 238,000.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But they're gonna give us all the
All of it.
legitimately feasible routes with a very precise sort of cost estimate attached to them.
Yep,
And yeah,
and then we'll. Yep, sorry. go ahead.
Okay, I thought they were gonna rough draft a few before they finalized all the routes, but they're gonna finalize all the routes? Or
I mean-
are we gonna vote and then they're gonna really fine tune the one we vote for?
Exactly. They'll come to you with their analysis of all of the routes and then the board will need to pick. And then they will design, so it's a shovel-ready plan of the final route that's been decided.
Have we had conversations with them recently in terms of when that will be completed? Because if you look at the original grant, it says like a date in the 2026.
So
Right.
end of next year is our plan.
Okay, end of next year, perfect.
Yep.
All right.
The other thing is town put in $10,000 for the transportation, plan, and then the DDA also put in money, so of course that will finish next year, so that's the grant. Community center, so if you recall, Andrew had brought forward an industrial pre-treatment policy that was related to grease traps and grease interception. The community center does need a grease trap in order to be compliant with this ordinance, so Dawn is budgeting for that. And then also some shades, some mechanical shades for this room. Dawn, would you like to
Yeah,
add
so
on?
the reason for that is clearly you can't get up there for manual shades. But this quilt is worth a great deal. And what is now pink used to be red and then it's fading from the sun. This legend, if you've never looked at it, describes each one of those squares. And this was gifts from the community members that was given to the school. The school could no longer house it and they donated it to the community center. So it would continue on. It's the only way. If you've got, many of you, I don't know if any of you have been to a daytime meeting in this room, but this time of year, when the sun is lower, sun comes straight in, you can't see. You have to keep moving your chairs around the room to stay out of the sun. And it affects the seniors at their meal site as well. So it's been on the radar for a long time. It keeps getting bumped out because other things break. And we end up using the money to fix essential things like heat and,
The
HVAC.
drapes didn't get cheaper in that time.
And things are not getting cheaper and over time.
So one thing I would say is, of course, the community center is its own fund and it's actually in a really
Right.
healthy position. And so this is an appropriate. We
Seems
also created a shit breaks fund. We created a line item in the community center's budget that is really just for when things break, because they break. But now we have it's not called that, but internally it's called a shit break.
Stuff.
So this week.
I was delighted to hear that we're not gonna have to dig the floor out.
Right. I mean, I'm just.
Yeah, back here with the floor. That's great. We finally found the plumber of my dreams. We kept
Yeah.
at it until it got
Hashtag winning.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then
Conquered.
thanks, Don. The streets fund, Josh would like to have the funding for the culvert, which is phase 4 of the summer road plan that Mark Hall had put together. If you recall, it goes from assessment to kind of grading to road base and foundation implementation to culvert. And so we have committed in our strategic plan to run through all 4 phases of the summer road improvement plan. So Josh and I talked about, we could pass it on to the homeowner, but his preference, Josh, if you want to speak to it, is to not. So
Yeah.
you want to handle this yourself.
Because it's something that needs to be done, and it's the only way that it's gonna sustainably have drainage in Old Town.
Yeah.
The lack of ditches and culverts, I mean, there's just no drainage, that's why it's constantly an issue with the running of the ruts and the potholes and the deterioration of the streets, so.
So, and everyone, Josh, street supervisor, if you haven't had a chance to meet him. So that's the culvert installation. Andrew, do you want to do your own slides? You want me to run through this? You want to take it?
You're doing a great job. Support. Give her a nap. I'm happy to do it.
All right, you want to do it? You've got much longer. Again, water and sewer in a very healthy place. So typically we see more CIPs come out of theirs. And a lot of what Andrew has here is to really just keep our plants running smoothly. Andrew, you take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Miranda. We'd like to build off next year, from this year of trying to be the best small utility possible and really performing the tasks, that a utility should do every year and starting to bring some of that more in-house next year. So we need to clean a third of our sewer system and inspect it, a third of our sewer system every single year. We cleaned the entire system this year with a contractor because we fell behind that. And next year, we're going to try to do it ourselves. So you'll see that some things have fallen off, but some things have added. One big thing we want to invest in is getting more equipment to help us perform more work in-house and also replacing equipment that is reaching the end of its design life at our treatment facilities, and also purchasing some spare equipment for critical infrastructure that we don't have spares of right now. In addition to that, GIS and asset management, we've bumped up our annual GIS and asset management budget line item to cover the ongoing annual expenses that's expected. But this would be a one-time large investment to update our mapping and get our work order management and asset management systems in place. We are in the process of updating our 10-year capital improvement plan with JVA. I should warn you now that there's some very large projects coming. And so part of these capital improvement projects, you'll see the sewer infiltration planning, raw water planning, and distribution system planning is doing the engineering now, as Maria has mentioned, for other projects. Get the design work, get the planning work done now, so that we can hopefully seek funding and get the work done in the future
In 2025
and beyond.
and beyond.
Yep.
Forever. Okay, so GIS and asset management from sewer and from water in order to cover all the total costs for it. And are we also pulling from parks for some of that too, or?
Right, the original idea was that the system might be able to be used by other departments.
Yes, so we'd like it to be used by other departments, but utilities can fund it. So
Yeah.
utilities is going to take the brunt of this
Okay.
because the general fund does not look as pretty as utilities.
Yes.
So Andrew has been gracious enough to carry the weight of this for his coworkers.
And will that cover and get you everything that you need?
So, yeah, I mean, I think for a town of our size, and the path we're going down is using ArcGIS, which is the biggest GIS company, and we're gonna try to use ArcGIS's kind of programs that they have for asset management as well. And for a government of our size, the pricing is really reasonable.
And maybe I could just add, within streets budget though, is some JVA doing some of that LiDAR work. There is LiDAR data for the county, but it's just not quite what streets needs. So while streets doesn't have like a GIS line item, there is gonna be some offset happening with Josh and JVA doing that LiDAR work.
I have a question. So the wastewater system equipment improvement and replacement, you got 275 total between. I don't understand why wastewater is line item.
Oh, it should be water in the second part.
Okay.
Water system equipment
That
improvement. and
completely makes sense. All of a
replacement.
sudden.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks for
Control fee probably.
an extra set of editing eyes on these things. What happens when we have to put it together on a Sunday? Yeah, so that should be water.
And what's the infiltration problem? What's going on? Is that something we have to do all the time?
No, it's groundwater entering our sewer system. And so we're paying to treat groundwater at our wastewater treatment plant. And the town had a lot of success with large projects, significantly reducing infiltration over the last 10 years. The town then shifted towards trying to address it through small projects. We have not seen that improvement since then. So we'd like to gear up for another large project, because we saw a lot of infiltration still this spring.
Do we know where it's coming from, or?
Yeah, that was the beauty of, luckily, we were able to inspect our sewer system during late spring, early summer, and we're able to catch a lot of location where they call them gushers, where water's gushing into the sewer pipe.
Well, we had such a wet spring.
Yeah.
So that was probably the best time to study it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Actually, JVA then did like a cataloging of all of the sewer videos. Data galore.
Wait to watch.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
so great. You watch all the video, it catalog, like did a catalog. Incredible.
Just the thing.
Is that like accessible?
Yeah, so we just reviewed the data on Friday. Well, so it's a part of the MIP update that's happening for utilities, and eventually that will come before you. That'll include that cataloging of the sewer.
Let's bring them to the Christmas party.
Yeah.
They're very fun people at Christmas parties. It's pretty amazing.
That's crazy. All right, cool.
Okay, turning it over to Kate here to talk about the DDA.
So our first is beautification, and it is an increase this year. And the intent at the discussion with the board was that they wanted to fund more town seasonal staff to help with cleanup and do what Nikki calls the chores around town and around in the district, and Chipeta, help with weeding and do that, and to also increase our gardeners' time to work on different areas in the district that people have been asking about, like the Peace Garden, et cetera. So those have all been planned for next year with this funding. And we love working with our gardeners, so we're really happy to expand and make that work. This is the big year for wayfinding, $400,000. And this is to do the signs. This is not just phase one. This is pulling a few signs from phase two that became relevant when they came out this summer. So this is really to comprehensively get them produced. So we're really excited to be at this point where we're picking the signs right now and the final designs, and that'll be all done by the end of the year, so that this will hopefully all be really well underway, spring, summer, because we'll be ready for it.
So this is 400,000 just for signs.
Just for signs. This is to get the contractor, get everything produced. This is the
And
budget
install.
installed. This is the whole kit and caboodle.
And how many signs are you guys looking at?
a lot. So I don't, do you know if the?
No.
Cause I don't want to.
To the last DDA packet where this was reviewed, there's a really great presentation that talks about where all the signs are.
Exactly, and it has like an Excel spreadsheet with all the dialogue. And then we have the dialogue from when our contractor came out here, when Merge, who is our consultant for this, came out and walked around town with us for a few days and really, we went over where everything will be, which is what kind of got us to this hybrid program. And the board decided, I know that's a big number, but they didn't want to break it up again. They just want to get it done because of how long it's taken and because of where they are. And they've got it to a good point and feel like they've got their arms around it where this is what they want. They just need the details done, and then we're gonna be off to putting this out to bid.
Does feel like it should be about 4,000 signs.
I know, it is a big number, but it's also, we don't think we're gonna spend that whole amount. We really tried to be very conservative because we don't wanna come back. We would rather say, hey, we didn't spend all of that, and then it goes back in.
We're spending money on branding. Is the branding that we're talking about gonna be incorporated in the wayfinding
Yes.
stuff?
Yes, we want it all to speak to each other.
Great.
The branding will be done by the end of this year.
Okay.
So the timing is still
That's
good
actually
with
quite good, yeah.
where we are fine tuning the sites and that. So we always wanted wayfinding and all of these destination, blueprint, all of these things to work together. And so we're trying to do that. The $30,000 for the Ned Fire Protection District IGA is an annual funding and that's remained flat.
And it's for the fire marshal.
Yes.
Right? Remember?
Yes, it's to cover inspections that happen in the district is what the IGA is for. So it's to make sure that we account for their time since we do use it for other things and all that. I think what the conversation in the past has been is that the money that the fire protection district feels that they were losing through the TIF is we go through a line item and we go through an exercise and we make them whole with this, with the intent that it's spent in the district still.
Okay, it seems like, they have their own taxing authority. Why does DDA supporting the fire department?
Because I think it's because, like I said, what they feel that they've lost through the TIF. And so that's where that gap, that's what was negotiated before.
It's basically backfilling what the fire department would have gotten from that tax.
Exactly.
From that area.
And so,
Yeah.
there's a certain line from
Right,
the form that
the
we
TIF.
get each year
Yeah.
that we pour this from. And so $30,000 is what we put in. It's sometimes like $1,000 left, but it's always right in between like 27 and 30,000. So that's why we budget 30 for that item. But again, it's to serve the district. More questions, and then $10,000 is what we've been doing annually for event support. This year we'll carry over a little bit because we weren't able to spend the full 10 this year. Though we did grant to most of everybody that was in the district having an event this year. So it's not for lack of applications. We definitely worked very hard to make sure that people that were planning things knew to access our money for event support as well as the traffic and safety support. But before I get to that, I'll do the $50,000 for the public art master plan and projects. This is an increase this year, and the increase is to allow for the donation of sculptures from Eldora. And I do not remember the person's name, Marion. The Marion sculptures is what people call them, and I know I'm gonna mess it up, but.
Marion Reynolds.
And so these sculptures now, they were donated by Eldora because of where they were located. They were worried that there was some wear and tear. And so we've been talking to them for 2 years about this. So now it's time, the public art group feels like they're ready to take this on. So this is really to cover the cost of moving those sculptures, storing them, doing this appropriately. So that's why, again, it's probably more than we will need, but since we've never done an undertaking like that, we've decided to make sure that we have enough money available to make sure we do it right and respectfully in honor of the gift. Like I said before, the 50,000 of traffic and safety support kind of go hand in hand with our event support. And this year, we're going to be, or 2024, they'd like to budget $50,000. And this would include 22,000 of carryover funds. We haven't spent as much parking and safety money, or traffic and safety money as we have in past years. And I think part of that is because of not funding the Frozen Dead Guys Days this year. That's pretty much the biggest thing. The board just likes to have this available to support based on the feedback that people have had about the different events and the costs that It is for event organizers to put on things, especially with related to traffic and safety, and we want to keep traffic moving through town.
Is that an increase from last year or is that the same?
Yes, let me look. I don't think it's much of an increase, but it is an increase.
And that goes towards like the people that are hired for,
Yes,
people's
flaggers.
season.
Mhm.
Because one of the DDA people grabbed me on one of those Sundays and said something about a training, different training for those folks, like we need to really be hiring people that are trained.
Yeah, there was some confusion about that. Yes, it is a requirement that, for CDOT, that they have to be certified flaggers, and we have to put in a plan. And now we're all very clear on what steps need to happen for next year and the way that it will go down for next year. So that is all accounted for, but we didn't realize CDOT needed 60 days. Now we know that. So there's a lot of different pieces that now we have a tickler that in May, the DDA will line all of that up. So that would be part of their board business, is making sure that all of that is correct for the fall.
It was 30,000 last year.
30, that was really, so.
And
it's
only
30.
8,000 was spent. Is that right?
Yes, yeah,
Because there's 22,000 carryover.
that's exactly.
That would make
My
sense.
money.
Just saying, so it's
That's-
likely that we will not spend $50,000.
That is a fair, it depends on events and what happens. And then, the spirit of the money is for traffic and safety support. So I don't think it rules out having people come if there is some other thing, I think that they're flexible, their intent is affecting traffic and safety through the district. And so that people stop and eat, spend money.
Well, and I also, correct me if I'm wrong, Kate, I think a large part of this, sometimes with certain events, we're gonna ask you to go get some extra duty officers.
Yeah.
That's a requirement, or you need to bring private security. And so this line item also provided supplemental support, where if we say, extra duty is $200 an hour, they could go to the DDA and ask for that funding if that became a requirement by the special events team that they needed to do it. So it's not just traffic. It's for,
safe.
and we heard with Frozen Decade Days, that was one of the most cost prohibitive was the security and the law enforcement piece, but it's a must. And so the DDA wants to step in and support if a large scale event came and needed that.
The next line item is a summer concert series. Last year, the DDA put in money to do a performance-based plan because that is in the DDA strategic plan. And instead of going straight into building a performance space, they wanted to see what a summer concert series would look like up here in Ned. And so this money is to find somebody to organize it. I'm not gonna become an expert in planning concerts here. So they're gonna have somebody that the hope is to have somebody that's going to organize this and work with some like medium-sized band, see what we can really do here in town with a rented stage. Some different options, because people have seen what's happened over at Trend Car, what they've been doing, as well as what the Eldora mobile stage can do. And that saves a lot of money. And it's really, do we need to build something, or is there another way that we can do this and still honor the music history and keep people coming into town for that? So that's what the intent behind the summer concert series is to kind of start going down that path of performance space and what is Ned and music, and how can we get better infrastructure to that.
Is that an increase from last year?
So
It's
it's a new line.
Okay, cool.
Because last year, I believe it was only 15 or pilot meeting.
Was
That was just for-
that's being carried over from,
That's what's being carried over is the leftover funds from planning.
okay.
From performance-based planning.
Planning.
Performance-based planning, thank you.
And now this is to create some sort of mobile or at least,
It's to rent the stage. We're not buying anything.
We're not
What
buying-
we're investing in is people.
but it's also the plan, well, it's also the execution of the summer concerts.
Yes, that person.
So it's not to capital improvement. I often think of something that's something.
It's
Well,
Yeah,
It's
it's
not a
not,
smart process.
Yeah.
But someone met with me today, talked with me about this and said, like, one thing to consider would be like a mobile stage.
Yeah.
We reached out to Peter Fiore. He bought one last year for 17,500.
Mhm.
And basically we use it, rent it, maybe make money off it. This was
Mhm.
some guys.
Exactly, and those are the types of things, and that's why they want to engage a events professional too, because that's not our skill set, but there are definitely board members that have a lot of opinions about that and experience with music and that. So we want to see where this goes, to see if, performance space, like really investing in that is what should be a next step.
it would be really nice to see some of these tried in the location where the performance space has been proposed to see how that
Yeah.
works, rather than just going wherever around town, even though I know that that might be a desire to like do it at different places.
I think, I will take that back, because I don't think it was necessarily to put it in that place.
No,
But-
can I speak real quick?
Go ahead, Tanya.
If you go to that spot right now, it's not, it needs a lot of money to be landscaped properly, to be a performance space, and vegetation, landscaping, etc. So it would be like basically putting a stage on a dirt lot, which isn't really an attractive place to go to a festival. So it doesn't seem to make too much sense to bring people to there at all, in my opinion, until we landscape it and grade it and make it proper for it. I mean, right now there's still that little pond there for drainage, and there's a bunch of, well, you can walk over there and see it. It's not a place for a festival right now.
I think that that's absolutely fair. I personally would be interested in approving more money to do that landscaping work.
Because you're at 890 right now, 890,000 for your total budget here. So, I mean, have you gone through that process to assess, what it would cost to do those improvements at the performance space area?
No. we have not gone through the process.
Imagine JVA could give you an opinion.
Yeah. How much did they say it was gonna be? I don't remember.
Like they've given an opinion of what it costs.
No, they haven't. So, I could absolutely look at that.
I'd personally be interested in seeing that, even if the whole series wasn't there. I think it'd be cool if there were a couple of shows in that space and it was made, because that would improve the space for every use that it could possibly put in,
Yeah.
right?
I think Nikki is opposed whatsoever.
Yeah, okay, good.
That's part of this idea I heard today about the mobile stages. It could go down there because there's worries about it being in a floodplain. Well, it's gonna flood, you just drive it out of there and don't have it there.
I've been doing some
And-
research
and-
on that as well.
And then it could be down there, or if there's an event at Chipeta, it could be there. If you do it at First Street, it could be there. And if we're not using it, someone else want to rent it from us.
Yeah, it turns out a lot of communities build their performance spaces on floodplains because they're the only structures that are actually appropriate for floodplains.
And that's actually in our JVA study. So they brought us really great information, and it's just that there is, as you are aware, there's conflicting views about where it should be.
Yeah.
So I think that is part of the intent, was seeing what
Yeah.
could be possible, or if it reinforces
Yeah.
those things.
I just
So
think it'd be a
this is
shame
fair.
to not use that space
Understood.
as part of this, because it would pilot it for us.
Yeah,
See what
people
that-
get excited
yeah.
about improving it then too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and being mobile, if there's wear and tear in one particular area, you can just always move it and then try to spread out the love. But even that $50,000 line item, but understood that it's for like an involved summer concert series. But again, if we can talk about how we improve that space, and maybe 25,000, maybe that's all you need, or what, I mean, I'm just throwing out a hypothetical number. But maybe it's less of a summer concert series, like you pulled out back the scope a little bit so that there is the funds that are going toward the improvement of the space. So, I mean, because 50,000 sounds like, yeah, we're blowing it out, the whole damn thing, the whole summer, right? But I'm just saying, like, maybe initially the scope is pulled back a
And
bit.
the intent, Tanya, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it three concerts was really what we were thinking, like once a month? So again, this was where,
I think we were hoping more for like 5, but
okay, but still,
I think we need to really, first we gotta find somebody to run and put out an RFP at the beginning of the year and see what the budget allows with a decent budget for the band. So it's not just, it's like somebody that we pay good money to come is our intention.
but since we don't know what we've not done this before.
Right. Yeah, this is the run. This is kind of the run to see, the enthusiasm that it generates if it's, amongst our local residents, if they're excited about it.
But I'll take those comments with JVA and get some of those numbers about physical improvements to see if there are some things that we could use.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think, how much would it cost for just the irrigation alone to put in? That would be maybe a Nikki question.
Well, if you're talking irrigation, we got a City of Boulder challenge.
Yeah.
That's a whole different.
Well, how are you gonna water the grass? Like there's all the.
You're gonna plant native grasses that are drought resistant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like at Gercio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I'm just looking for, on like all of these things, I'm looking for like more direct tie-ins to long-term infrastructural capital improvement. Like even if it is, a temporary,
Baby steps
kind of,
forward,
but
yeah.
at least we're making progress towards that.
Especially things that have been asked for a long time.
Yeah.
And I also want to note with the performance-based location that the square footage of it is pretty much significantly smaller than Gercio Field. So the idea was maybe, is that really where we want to invest a lot of money in creating a space when it's smaller than Gercio, when you could just put a temporary stage in Gercio and have a bigger arena. And we can show you the maps. We can have a meeting about this at a DDA where the maps are shown and bring it to you guys at the BOT. Because it is a significant question. How much do you want to invest in an area that's smaller than Gercio when maybe Gercio is really the better place to be holding concerts, but we can't put a permanent stage there. But it has already everything in place. It's already level. It already has the grass, So those are the real questions that some of us were contemplating.
Yeah, and it's not to say don't have the summer concert series there at Gercio, but can we get something better than a dirt plot, over in that area?
Yeah, I
That
think-
can be used for
yeah.
multiple things.
If one way or
besides-
the other, I think that area would be improved. And if it was through doing a summer concert series, I think that'd be a great combination.
Right.
This seems almost like a conversation for parks. And if they want to do some improvements in that area, just for the sake of our landscape, right?
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
It's not necessarily part of this necessarily.
DDA
It's kind of a first step. Right now it's a dirt lot holding, equipment, and it's got a lot of work to do. And it seems like that's something that town has to decide. Do they want to focus on making that area nicer or not? And that hasn't really been come up to any discussion and that we've seen with parks as being something they're even remotely focusing on with ProSab, right? Am I wrong? Or I just
For the entire time that I was on that board, at least.
So what I would recommend, obviously, the DDA needs to have an opportunity to talk about it. They meet actually the day after your next vote. So we may need to ask them to consider quickly meeting earlier than the 7th so that we have this information for that budget meeting. But I guess what I'd like to do is maybe table this a little bit so we don't get too deep into the weeds and we allow the DDA an opportunity to assess how they'd like to increase this line item and maybe what the parameters are around how they'd like to see this developed. And really it starts with January.
Yeah.
Step one. Because the DDA's next meeting is dedicated to working with DCI, Downtown Colorado, so we may have to ask for a bit of a special meeting. So we could keep rolling though, so we don't get too deep into that one, but we're gonna put a pin in it and come back.
Okay.
And I also need to say it's not in the goals of the Parks Department at all. This particular plot of land.
I guess
Yeah, it is something that's happening, and we're already to start doing things to it in the spring. And as soon as sturgeon goes out.
Okay. We'll come back.
All right. The next we have money budgeted for the Riverwalk. And this, while the DDA in their strategic plan, they wanted to look at the north side more. This actually is to work on the south side of the Riverwalk and to fix some accessibility. With Nikki's guidance, we'll probably go out for an outside contractor, I think is what we had talked about. That this isn't something that park staff could handle. It's just not what we can pay for a contractor and we can manage that contract. So we'll do it that way. And so this is the money to work on that side of the Riverwalk. That's not to say that we're not still exploring the north side. It's just seeing that this is an immediate need and a way that we can use funds to impact that area.
But there are no plans to do a north side river walk next year.
No, not next year. We're talking to people. the DDA is sensitive to the fact that there are neighbors that have concerns, that there's a lot of people that have a lot of thoughts on it, and they're just being very slow and having due diligence and talking to people. Nobody's trying to run this through when, after having some of these conversations and looking at previous plans and the committee met with Nikki and kind of walked around and came up with this and saw this as a much more fitting, immediate way for us to be impactful. And that'll include a little bit of carryover for this year because we didn't spend any money on Riverwalk this year. It was just committee time working on it. And so all those funds will get carried over to make the actual project work. And now for one, so we have budgeted 140,000 for Crusher sidewalk replacement. And this is confusing because 40,000 of it we'd like to use now to fix Crusher sidewalk in the places where there's a lot of runoff, where it's a real challenge for parks to constantly be putting it back on. So we wanted to concrete that.
I was gonna say, when you say
Yeah.
fix,
Fix.
you mean not gonna be crushed
That's
on.
not Crusher sidewalk. So that $40,000 is to immediately alleviate that issue.
Where's that going specifically?
First Street.
Second
Second
Street.
study, I was gonna say the wrong street.
Part of East Street. Our tap application location, which is Second Street down to East Street.
Second Street down to East Street. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so that's where the 40,000 will go. The $100,000 is available as match for a grant.
Right, so it might seem a little backwards, but the crusher fine needs to come out
Yep.
and concrete needs to go in. But ultimately, we need to raise the sidewalk so that we stop at people parking on it, and we need to do a full rebuild. But in an effort not to delay this maintenance, that's just a necessity. The DDA has agreed to put aside money to be the match funding for hopefully a TAP or a Safer Streets for All or one of those grants. But Nikki and her team can do the immediate fixes. If those grants don't work out, we're not deferring maintenance.
So there will be no raised curb.
The goal would be eventually to go for a
Eventually,
grant.
in this 40,000 Second Street.
Correct, not in the
Yeah.
40,000. The 40,000 is just getting rid of the crusher fine and creating a sidewalk that can be used.
So did you get feedback as to why we weren't approved for the TAP grants? this last
Too many
year?
applications.
There
There were
too
so many applications.
in
They-
general.
They gave us no negative feedback. They understood what we were looking for. It's just, we were up against a large scale projects and just in the end didn't need, our score was really high though too.
Yeah.
We just happened to miss out. And so it's just one of those scoring things that didn't keep us high enough. But basically was told, apply again, was just told about a Safer Streets for All that might work for this. So we're eager to go for the funding, but we also don't want to be like we usually say, oh, we're waiting for a grant, we're waiting for funding. We know these sidewalks need work. The DDA is willing to fund that immediate work to just make them safe. Safe and ADA.
So that 40,000 is basically money that we burned when we built that to begin with. We're now paying for it.
And it's a Band-Aid approach
Yeah.
because
Just in case the funding doesn't work. If the grants don't come through, do we really want to roll yet another year with pressure fine? That is such a problem.
Yeah.
We understand this feels a little backwards, but it's really a must. Those sidewalks, you cannot use them. And so we're really recognizing that we're gonna spend the money to fix them in hopes that then we get the money to enhance them.
But if they don't get the money.
They've at least
at
been
least
fixed.
You can go up and down on wheelchairs.
You can use them.
Mhm.
Right, I mean, I don't think any of us wanna sit around for yet another season where it's like, we hope we get money, so we can finally fix our sidewalks. If we're lucky, and perhaps we're lucky and we get the funding way early, and we don't need to do the temporary fix. But if we're starting to head into the year, when it's time that Nikki really could do the sidewalk project, which is summer, right? You can't do it
that's
in the
true.
winter.
It's halfway through the year.
We might get lucky and then we got the grant and we don't need to do this 40,000. But I appreciate that the DDA was willing to put it aside if grants just don't happen to work out.
They definitely see the issue and want to help. So this is just their way of saying, here, let's do this. All right. So the next is $20,000 for parking planning. And that's more to be accessed after the parking plan has gone through and after everybody is on the same page with town. Then that's when this would be available for if town needed money to go after something or if the DDA wanted to. But again, this is more us earmarking money for a need that we see that's available.
So just a reminder, the multimodal transportation is all forms of transportation, not just parking. And so there may be recommendations to evaluate parking, or it's actually executing some of the parking presentations we already brought you. So like putting,
Yeah.
parking blocks on Lakeview, right? Or like designating signage. Like we already have the study. The feeling was we aren't going to implement any of those best parking places that we as the planning commission felt like was great. Let the plan guidance say you should build out Third Street, you should build out Lakeview, you should build out these areas, designate true parking, and the DDA will help fund it.
Okay, so this isn't putting a parking plan together.
It's executing
Okay.
the plans that have already been out there, but we're gonna wait until the multimodal transportation plan is done. That hopefully validates all the work the planning commission.
And that was my request, because I saw this and I was like, whoa.
And
So
there
maybe
are
like,
some people that kind of have some of that like, if we need another part, you know, like if they need something, that was part of it, but Miranda's right, that it is really to be responsive to what town ends up with, and
Right.
where everybody lands on.
Where
wait,
parking
so
can
is
be
there
developed.
still some of that, I guess, disagreement among NDDA? Because
I don't feel like after my last presentation, so I'll review with the DDA, all things transportation. And I feel like we walked away from that meeting understanding that the town's putting in the work for the planning,
right.
but we don't have the money to execute what comes out of that plan. And so the DDA is ready to come in with the funding to finish out the plan.
Okay.
And so, sure, I mean, maybe if Fear and Peers is like, you should study parking. Highly doubt that's gonna happen. But if for some odd reason then they could use that for parking. But the feeling is Fear and Peers is gonna tell us where is the best space to develop parking, and the DDA can come into. I don't think that's been lost on anyone
No.
after I spoke
No,
about all things transportation.
Absolutely not, because one of the examples was Lakeview, putting in the blocks. That was exactly what was during this line item, so.
Because we can't just say park on Lakeview and then have no signage or parking blocks to really designate how that works.
Understood, just as long as this is about execution and not recreating some of.
No, it's not, no, that's not the intent. It's to be able to help facilitate rolling this out.
And
I think you should say parking plan execution, even though it's a transportation multimodal plan. It's that the DDA just wants to focus on the parking components of the multimodal transportation plan.
But also the multimodal transportation plan, they're not gonna be giving us designs, are they? They're
No.
not gonna be doing engineering work.
No, but we
So
can
that
then,
would need to be done.
yeah. We could turn to
Yeah.
JVA, but if they say, Lakeview's perfect and you just need to do diagonal parking or
Sure.
parallel parking, and here's how you might execute that.
Yeah, but if something needs to be graded and drainage installed or whatever from a recommendation, then yeah.
Then that's where the streets team.
But still, I think what you were getting at, Eric, is still an execution
Yeah.
of that strategy.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
that's what we need to make sure we
Not
stick to.
Doing another
Not doing another plan.
simultaneous plan.
Right.
No, this is execution of the plan. And again, the way the DDA, the reason they asked me to give a huge parking and transportation update was because some DDA members were like, park out Lakeview. And we're like, whoa, we've already studied that. Let's let the multimodal plan. And we agree, but let's let the experts, your peers,
Yeah.
say, yeah, parking out Lakeview is a really great idea.
Yeah.
And let's just wait until we have their expertise for how to best do that strategy, and then the DDA will implement it. So Lakeview was really kind of the catalyst for the
Of
start.
that conversation, exactly, and it was
Probably
great.
the best location.
It was great, because now the DDA has, they have in one little place everything that they need to review for that, and I think that really helped all of them get on the same page.
And they understand town's doing like all things transportation these days. And so the plan is that I will bring monthly transportation updates to the DDA to say where we stand on all these different transportation related items.
So how about DDA funds for the paid parking implementation?
I mean, they talked about that.
Is
They're
this
open-
something that?
They're open to that. Yeah,
So you'd have
they
to-
talked about
I
it,
need to get special.
okay, because then how much does that really cost?
$20,000.
So 20,000 to get started,
Okay.
and then there's, I guess there's ongoing fee.
The ongoing fee gets pulled out of the money earned though. So there's no they're gonna take a percentage.
Okay, so they're gonna take, so they're.
It's not really much to pay.
But that's honestly, that's part of the reason that it first came up, was to help town with that piece of it. So I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility. I don't know where it'll land, but it's definitely was a part of the conversation.
Way to save money out of general fund there, trustees.
Andy, I gotta try to make this woman happy, right?
Yeah, well, that is not working.
That's all.
It's gonna take a little bit more.
You have the climate to ask those questions about parking in particular, so. Why not?
Well, it's something we're moving towards, and it's, I mean, all of it's gonna be right in the central business district.
No,
So, yeah.
That it is,
I don't think anybody came and asked us, did they?
we did not.
no, they didn't,
Yeah,
but
so we couldn't put in our budget if it wasn't asked
it was
for.
during the conversations, but there wasn't a dollar amount that was thrown around like that. It was just talking about parking and how to help lift it in, you know, in that roundabout way.
I do like that.
You wanna do your last one?
Yeah.
One more for the DDA.
One
and then
last
we'll move
one.
on.
All right, last one, here we go.
All right, so this is $30,000 and technically this is admin tip funds and this is not for me. It's for project feasibility and professional studies. The board felt like they wanted to have money that was readily available because people come with different things and things come up. And they wanted to have money that was available right now that they could use. And so the thought would be that if a project that wasn't in our plan came and we decided we wanted to fund it, we would bring it from here. But ultimately, we would come to the board for supplemental to approve whatever project it is. And then that money would get moved over into that project. But this is to make sure that it's available to be able to be responsive now, is the intent. Not just for us to have $30,000 to spend on random
Right,
things.
and
That's not.
doing a supplemental budget, I think it becomes
Yeah, or whatever
an
happens.
action item before you,
Yeah.
I mean, you ultimately have to approve every time
Yeah.
they spend this money anyways, and so they would come to you and say, now, we're interested in studying, I don't know what,
Yeah,
but
whatever project would come.
something, and we'd like to use that as an admin TIF funding versus not having it at all, and then they have no ability to spend money, and we really do have to do a supplemental, which is quite painful.
Can you give an
Because pump
example?
Pump track was the example. Pump track is one of the things, every year there is something that comes to the
Yeah.
DDA.
So they took the pump track funding out of the event, basically events and supports and
Yeah.
traffic line item. When it really should have come out of kind of just this, maybe a little bit of a catch-all in many ways. But they had to kind of like do that rob Peter to pay Paul and a little bit to make that design money work for pump track. So I think what I guess as staff, I think we support this because, you never know, but mid-year, we don't want them to have approach some recreational project they could work on and not having the funding and have supplemental budgets. While they may not look like it, they are quite painful for retail. It's ideally, we'd love to go a whole year and not do a single one. And so having a little bit of a bit of this wiggle room, especially for a group like the DDA, would be great because it allows them to pick up a mid-year project that's very exciting, that they have this opportunity to fund Chapita Park's playground equipment. Maybe they could offer some match funding. That's not in their list here, but there's an opportunity that maybe they can support us.
Well, that's exactly what I was just going through, is the rest of the items in the strategic plan that would go to, in support of that.
I mean, ultimately, you have to still approve that money.
Yeah, I was gonna
say
say,
no, like.
come before you with anything.
They can't just spend it.
Right, they just spend it. So I know that may feel a little scary to like put aside a huge chunk of money, but they can't spend it without your authority anyways. I think we'd rather see the cushion than not at all.
Mhm.
Because oftentimes the DDA is a great grant funding stream, a great grant match funding stream, but nothing here would allow them to do that if you don't have that $30,000 admin TIF piece.
Which could be then it can just, rob Peter, pay Paul too, exactly. It just gives us that room. But we just really want to be transparent that that's really not like admin. It really is about for the things that come up, and that was the way that they thought about it and discussed it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't have too much of a problem with that. I mean, everybody knows I hate tax increment financing. And that's no secret, I don't think. The things that give me pause are the beautification budget
Mhm.
and the summer concert series without a mind towards a capital improvement piece where there's a real long-term impact to that. So those I'm happy enough with traffic and safety support and the event support.
And maybe just a reminder that the beautification is staffing for Parks Department. a large chunk of that is.
How much is it? How much is it?
So, I think the way we have it earmarked is up to 15 for the 2 parks employees, but there was one. So then it is 20 some odd.
Yeah.
So it was more than, I thought that.
Yeah, so we've already budgeted for 2 temporary parks employees, and then the DDA was willing to pick up another 1, because typically what was successful for Nikki 2 years ago was to have 3.
Yeah.
But we really couldn't afford all 3, so the DDA is willing to pick up the 3rd. That gives her 12 weeks of supports for the summer.
So those are part-time employees?
Yes.
Temporary part-time employees that the DDA is helping to fund, and that's a large chunk
Yes,
of
thank
it.
So that's 20 grand, you said? Or-
So yes, it's a little over 20 for 2 employees. Sorry, I was thinking that was only the one. So it's a little over 20 for the 2. Then last year it was 30 for Judy and her program. This year, we're kind of letting her go up to 40, but that she's probably not gonna go that high. She'll probably stick more about 35, but that's again to do more, plant more, help more. And then the other thing that the DDA was hoping to put in the budget, but we're still talking about this, is another trash receptacle. So that's part of what that
Larger
is.
conversations with Nikki.
Larger conversation. There it is.
Well, Chris Pelletier's not here anymore, so.
You're battling.
So now we're gonna install trash cans everywhere.
Andrew's manifesting Chris and how he's dressed tonight, so.
So that's really
That's how Chris Pelletier would have.
where that number got so big. So I definitely understand that that's big, but it is to pay for more staffing, to pay for people to, to help just keep it beautiful down here.
Right, so we wanted to go temps, but really had to nickel and dime it with Nikki and just realized we couldn't do what was successful. If you remember 2 years ago, for you that were on the board, Nikki had Macy, Kelly, and Kat, and that was just a dynamic group who got a ton done, and we didn't do that this year. And you felt it.
I felt it because all my trained employees were busy with the Curcio Barker Meadows project. I couldn't pull them off that project to go,
Well, can I ask that, when it comes back, that we do break it out? So that we know we're paying for employees here, we're, paying for Gardner there, so that it's not just a big lump sum of 60, because 60 grand with the word beautification next to it kind of looks ridiculous. So.
So is the 400,000 for how many signs? Like, and I know you said that you were gonna bring, that presentation, but like knowing exactly.
40,000 slides.
It's 30 some odd. I mean, it's not a small amount. We're not talking 10 signs, but it's not 50 signs.
But the
I
number
don't
would be
think.
good.
But I'll get you the number on that. I can send you, there's no small amount of work have gone into it.
And as
Kate, this is,
sorry, go Tanya.
how much have we spent last year on wayfinding and the year before? I'm just curious what the whole project's gonna end up costing.
So, you paid, so 150,000 is what has been approved. So all told is 550.
Gotcha. And for the 150,000 we've spent already, what have we gotten?
So that has been 3 years of engagement with Merge and back and forth and plans and drawings and, you pretty much have gotten your whole 150 from Merge and then a little bit of my time, but mostly it has just been Merge producing everything that we need to get out to bid, because this is what their contract, their upfront contract was for.
Do we even have the design for the signs yet? I feel like I haven't seen any.
Yes,
It was
there's
in the
several,
DDA
yeah,
packet
it's in the,
a few months ago.
so I can send that to you.
So if we
Okay.
have a design, we need to merge that with our branding. How does that work?
There's several different forms of design, so there's different versions that they have, and so we can make tweaks, but like we've had to talk about something, we couldn't wait this whole time, and so we had to talk.
Right, and we're talking about more like
We're not-
color scheme.
Coloring, yeah.
And our logo, like,
Yeah.
it's not like, in terms of the design of the sign, like, you're gonna have signage that's got multiple
layout
parking
thing,
here,
yeah.
and library here, like, that's already done. We just need to then decide what is our color scheme.
Exactly,
And then
that's
we'll
just making
adjust.
sure we all,
So, the tweaks that are needed is not gonna slow the process, it's just making sure that when we finally adopt things like our color scheme, that's.
it'll all be adhered in there, and the timing will
And
work.
not every sign has town's logo on it, it's
No.
not.
Most of them, some of them are straightforward and small, just a little parking, like there's a variation of things, and some of them are longer and have more directions on them. So there's a mixture of different.
Are Christmas decorations coming out of beautification? Is that what
No,
it's coming
Nikki recycles Christmas
Okay.
decorations like crazy.
I just wasn't sure if that was
She's a diver and she gets real thrifty.
Paper mache.
No,
It's not a PVC. and
I was
electrical tape.
asking.
I was just wondering.
Nikki makes it work.
And I would love to see more of a focus on sustainable beautification, especially when it comes to the plants.
She has.
Yes, yeah.
She's worked very hard on that. So the traffic circle is now all sustainable. And it does not look pretty this year, but that's the way it's gonna be. If this is what everybody wants and that's what she wants
Yeah.
everybody to know. If this is what she is working very hard, and our vendor for a wonderful family came up and they looked at everything and asked it. They give us a lot of support and they said that she's doing a great job of lifting and that she's on the right turn. And that was part of why we hired Judy, is because she is from up here. She grows up here. And so she knew how to do what we really wanted and take into those things. So she has worked very hard on making this very sustainable, and her water use and everything.
Yeah.
She's very cognizant of everything that happens. And that's why we love working with Judy.
No, my first year on the board, felt like we spent $20,000 on annuals, which seemed crazy.
Yeah, no, and you know, the cost of our flowers is going down because of the
Right.
way that she's doing things. We're spending more on labor,
Yeah.
but I think we'd all prefer that because we're seeing more bounty from these things. And so she's working really hard with our vendors to incorporate that, and that's very much a part of who she is and was why she was hired.
It's much easier to justify TIF financing for that.
But yeah, she works very hard on it.
So I think our takeaway will try to be to get a special in place so that we have the more information for you on the 7th.
I did want to add something to this slide, what we did now. So all you're seeing here, the 890,000 is new projects with a little bit of carryovers. Then there is another 114,000 that is going to be carried over that are not part of the new projects that we can list here.
And
That's like your multimodal transportation plan, grant match, safer main streets match,
So when you see the budget,
all match.
it's going to be over $1 million.
And then what's the fund balance right now? Okay.
We'll get back to you on the 7th. This is why we need all your answers.
There's not much left,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
but that's,
no, I mean,
I mean,
this is them, so
We want them running down to zero.
well, and that's what this budget really does, and so it will be interesting to see, and, yeah, so, yes, they're running down the budget.
Okay.
Thanks, Kate.
yes, thank you.
Well, I was gonna,
You wanna, we will hold here as long as you want to.
well, so just going back to our strategic plan, and so Kate, would you say that everything was sort of knocked out for you guys' strategic plan through this budget? Like you didn't leave any holes or anything?
No,
correct?
they tried to really incorporate all of the things that came from our discussion. So that's where, parking, that was a big part of what they were talking about. So that's a piece of there. And so, yes, there wasn't, anything that we talked about that we said no to. Is that,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
agree.
think that's where we landed, but they really carved out with everything.
Okay, and I'm just gonna ask the question just
Go ahead.
because I've been asking the other question, some of the other questions regarding funding. Is there anything that you need for the building from a maintenance standpoint that can pull from a DBA?
From the town hall.
Yeah, for town hall. Because we've talked about what kind of a state that place is
So
in the central business district.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Nikki's pulling some estimates for town hall. We also want to still do the historical designation component.
Sure.
So we're really not in a great place to say like, yes, we need X amount for town hall.
Is there anything that NDDA can help support with the historical designation? Is there any
Not at
fees
really the
or
moment.
anything associated?
Perhaps this is the admin though, where we can come to them and say, hey, we finally figured out, here's what we can do for our building.
Yeah.
Will you support us?
Yeah.
But I'm just not sure we're gonna be ready by the budget.
Okay.
All the budget components yet. Because we ideally want to get the historical designation first.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that would be like what I'm, I guess, also looking out for is how that not discretionary fund, but that fund where those things that could come up, like how does it hit back to our strategic planning?
I think, town hall, I think that's gonna be a bigger case that will have to be made, just because, yeah, it's in the district, but these are from the property owners. And yes, we're all in this together, but I think that there needs to be, they want to hear not just, oh, it's in the district, you need to pay for it. It's in the district. this is why it's in our interest to pay
Yeah,
for this.
my head immediately went to, I'm not sure, I would argue that's a good DDA expense because it doesn't turn around with revenue generation. Ideally, the DDA, the investment should be to support the downtown development, to encourage increase in sales tax because we've invested in infrastructure. I think town hall is amazing. I'm biased, but it's not gonna generate.
Why don't we start
sales.
selling tours?
Well, I
We
mean,
should. I
if
just talked to someone about that, yes.
Lovely wagon wheel. Everybody can look at the old town meeting minutes. Wow.
some pieces of it, like, that makes sense, like, that's what we're saying. Like,
Sure,
things
but that's
like
gonna
that.
require personnel. I can tell you now, well, I think tours are lovely and
No, I was joking.
but people are proud of it. Right now, town hall is not generating revenue. It's just a cool thing that everyone takes pictures of.
Yeah, they do a lot.
I took a lot of pictures of it, huh?
Okay, Walter says it.
Yeah, instead of speed cameras, let's just put Instagram cameras.
That's what I mean,
Yeah,
like-
in front of the town hall.
Lots of work camera.
We make a lot of money because there's a lot of photos at town hall.
Yeah.
Yep. We're probably in a lot of photos at town hall.
Okay. So
All right, so more to come. Come back. Thank you,
Fun
Kate.
part.
All right, expenditure time. Is everyone good? Does anyone need a break? Keep rolling.
Let's get it going.
Okay, short-term rental occupational tax. Currently, 99% of the health and human services fund that the town receives from short-term rental occupational tax goes to health and human services, which is really the food pantry. You have entered into a $909,000 contract with Boulder County Sheriff's Office. That is a strain on the budget. And so we would encourage you to consider dropping that split down to 51% going to the food pantry for health and human services and 49% for police. I did already speak to Audie, who is the food pantry chair, and he understood and they can work with this. So we would just really, truly, you're gonna offset your police department budget, and it's not an earth-shattering amount, but anything helps at this point. So we're asking for your consideration to do the 51-49 split.
how much have they spent out of the budget?
So we currently have received 26,000 out of 70,000 budgeted for the year.
But remember, we are always, so you don't, like, you don't have to pay quarter 2 or quarter 3
Sure.
until the end of quarter 4. So
Right.
always
Right, I'm
it's
just
very
saying, yeah,
far
year to
behind.
date.
Still,
Right, it's
that's,
still far
that's
away
still
from.
behind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, again, it's not earth shattering, but at this point, anything helps,
Sure.
and we do feel like this is just a year, you can always go back up in 2025, but for 1 year, put your money towards police department and helping to offset that budget.
Police department, meaning general fund, is
General
really
fund.
what we're saying.
Okay, so 26,000 has gone into it. How much is,
No, that's the revenue, right?
Yeah.
So far. So of that, 99% will be going, or, I do it every quarter, will be allocated to the HHS fund.
But if you're asking how much is the HHS fund, I don't have the
Yes,
data.
yes. How much have they spent? Because
Oh,
I don't
like
know.
last year, I think it was like,
You know,
they weren't even close.
Anything, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know how we spent the money we got from town.
Right.
Was all on food.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely spending it, but that's where Audie just felt like they also get other funding streams, so it's not like we're gonna make or break. It's just gonna be that maybe they're limited in how what funds they use from us to help households.
I think,
But Kane Cares, they always have other funding streams like FN Kane Cares who can come step in.
but I think it's worth noting that EFA did just come to us
Asking for money.
asking for money.
Sure.
Just say.
I mean, I guess, know that currently, so we're about $300,000 in the negative,
More.
a little bit more.
Yeah.
We are,
It's like,
so just so you know, the questions we're asking you,
Yeah.
that's 300,000+ in the negative, and we already operated on the assumption you were willing to do the 51-49 split. So
Yeah,
if you're,
not
which is
much.
totally fine, if you don't want to, just
I
know,
am willing. I am willing.
we'll
That's so you
change,
know.
I'll deepen that number deeper into the 300s for everything.
Speaking for the
You
food
don't
pantry,
agree
as the
to-
treasurer, I can say we're fully aware, we're good with it.
oh, good, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Now, okay,
So,
no, I'm good.
is there anyone that has grave concern about this recommendation?
I mean, yeah,
Okay. Would you like it to stay, would you like to talk with your peers about it
well,
staying?
I mean, I just don't, I'm concerned because I think that we could have much more impact in the community putting the money into EFA, the food pantry,
Sure.
than giving it to the sheriff's department, basically. Like, I genuinely believe that. I think I think it's a very bad price to performance ratio.
Yeah, I think we hide a lot of things. In the last section of the budget, we hid a lot of things too. We got things the town really should be paying for. We hid it in DDA's budget. I always like to see things in a line item that I can trust.
Yeah.
As you start to do more of this, I trust it less.
Yeah.
There's all the, oh, by the ways, or you should know, and believe me, in the 90 days, we won't remember.
Yeah.
That we're, just in the last, just like, we got that very last thing on the DDA, that we took it from 890 to 1.15 or something. So I think we've got a bumpy year.
Yeah.
We're over 300 in the hole. This is not, I think we're doing some strange contortions, but I'd like it to stop after this.
Yeah.
Right, so just a reminder, this is the year of stabilization, the year of prioritizing revenue. So this, I would say, sure, I agree, we would love to go to 99, and it's not super fun for us to be like, please take that away and give it to police. We just feel like this is the year to do that in the form of stabilization. We end up, our goal is to be healthy revenue wise, and then in 2025, we go back to the 99-1 split.
What does that do for us? What's the number? 49% goes to the general fund. How much is that?
Right now, it would be
$13,000. So it's like
really
nothing.
small.
But that's sort of what I mean, right? It's like $1,000 with EFA or the food pantry
That's
does
a long way.
so much more than $1,000 in the general fund for the police department.
Sure, and you could, again, we're just
That's why-
offering you,
Yeah.
if we then keep this at 99, just know it's $13,000 deeper into the
Yeah,
next.
and maybe that's what you'll do, until you get the numbers, right?
As the treasurer for the food pantry, I'll be back next year.
For more?
Like, I'm not saying that I'm like,
To get it back.
refuse to accept this or anything, but I have grave concerns about it. Yes.
You can, I'm not saying you have to make these decisions tonight. Obviously, you need to see the numbers. We understand that. Yes, we're just wanting to let you know that we've already administratively kind of made that when we built the budget, but we need
Yeah.
you in a resolution to solidify that that's the split you want, because annually you have to decide what your split is.
How much do we actually think we'll spend on the Boulder County Sheriff, given that we know?
909,000.
990.
But those folks won't start.
Doesn't matter, you're paying for them now, because they're in academy now, so you're paying for them now, plus you're paying for
Training.
extra duty,
We're training
plus you're
right
paying
now.
for Sergeant
And-
Merit.
What Sergeant Merriam said is 50% graduation rate from the academy, and we're paying one way or the other.
You're paying for 3 officers
Even
in
if they don't
academy,
graduate,
a
still
sergeant,
paying.
and extra duty. You're gonna have to spend your 909. I'm positive, I'm confident
Yeah.
about that one. If not the whole thing, you're gonna get real darn close.
There's nothing about it to like.
Other than it's cheaper than what we would have.
Well,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
yes.
Now, I'll throw a wild hair out here. You can always, I did talk to Commander Vanderlist and was like, what if they wanted to scale back down? And what they said is, if they weren't short-staffed across the board, the answer would be no. Because no, we have to give a years-long contract, you have to give a years-long notice, but they're short-staffed. So if there was a desire to scale back, but remember, that's 50% service all day long
Yeah.
and only a dedicated sergeant. And I'm just not sure that's what we want to tell the community after we just went through all of this.
No.
But it is on the table,
And if
and
they-
that brings the contract down from 909 to 7.
And if they have to book someone, it's 5 hours. It's 5 hours
Yeah.
outside of.
It's not a great, I wouldn't recommend it, but just, it is on the table.
When will we know if these guys are gonna graduate?
January.
If.
She said
Okay,
they'd start in the.
They'll start
Spring, she told me.
Right, because they go from academy to FTO. They don't go from academy straight to us. They
Right.
gotta go,
so
Q1,
that's
spring.
well, that's kind of cute.
once they graduate, is it 100% likely they'll get through FTO, or they wash more out?
Correct. People who wash out in FTO, for sure.
Okay,
Yes.
so we're doing some risk sharing, aren't we?
Well, we probably will never downshift, but like, it was a year if we were gonna go back to Marshall. It was 6 months if we wanna go back down. I remember that contract. 6 months you pay at the higher rate before you drop down.
Mhm.
Not that we're going.
Yeah,
I guess I'm just saying that it seemed like maybe we could negotiate sooner and not have to be totally held to that clause because they need
because they
officers.
can't staff it.
They can't staff their own people. So if we were like, oh, we want to change it, not saying we should, and by no means am I recommending that, but it is on the table.
Let's move along
All
so
right.
we can get to
Let's
this.
focus on revenue.
Let's talk about legal
Yeah.
real quick.
For revenue, oh, yeah, it's
Legal.
coming.
Attorney Madsen is increasing her fees from $155 to $170 for us. and then 200 to 230 for pass-through. We did recommend increasing the budget, not only to accommodate that increase, but because we have used legal services more, so we're recommending going to 90,000 and wanted to just get some input
Do
on
we
how
have
you
comps
all
for this?
feel about this. I mean, you've gone over.
What was your question?
Do we have comps for this from other firms? Like, is this in
We
line
have not put
with
out
what other firms charge or?
bid.
Well, I mean.
This
not-
is less
You
than
want us
I've
to just do
have
comp?
ever spent for any.
Yeah, so I can look into that. I just have Attorney Madsen saying this.
I was just wondering. Well, of course,
Yeah.
I'm just.
the firm giving you the rate would say it's reasonable.
I would say that your legal.
I just don't want to hear that we're paying like 30% more than
Sure.
other towns our
Right.
size.
But I would say the reason we feel 90 is appropriate is your legal fees have really wavered all over the place. I mean, you've just got some really high, there's a lot going on here. We're paying
Indeed.
$6,000-7,000 for legal.
We paid 87 actual in 2022, so 90,000 sounds just about right.
I
Complicated piece.
have a question. Why is she almost at every meeting for the whole time, even when she doesn't chime in, but barely anything?
So when she's at our meeting, she's there for anything that's legally oriented, but she works on other things during our time. So she doesn't just sit there and bill us for 3 hours and then goes back and bills us for 3 hours for a project. She works on projects when she's not participating in a conversation. So it's hours.
What does she bill us then? Just for the 5 minutes she talks to us or for the 3 hours of the meeting?
Full meeting.
She's
And-
multitasking. She's doing
Correct.
some of.
But she charges us for the 3 hours of the whole meeting.
But
Doing
she's
3
also
hours
doing
of work.
3 hours worth of work.
Can't
when
we
she-
just ask her to come when it's her time or consolidate these sort of, I just feel like it's a huge waste of money having her at these meetings most of the time, unless we're directly asking her questions. Maybe we could get better use of our budget. I'm fine with budgeting the extra amount, but I'm trying to think of ways that we could use her less. Because that's a lot. I mean, that's, that's $600 every
Yeah.
I guess what I'm
meeting,
saying- done $600 worth of work, whether she sat in that room or not. And so having her in the room to give feedback and to answer questions, but we don't. So she and I talk before every meeting and determine like, where should she be and where should she not? So when you don't see her, it's because I say, I don't think that there's anything legally oriented, but if we're bringing 4 ordinances like we're about to do on November 21st, I think you do want to have legal representation because that attorney wrote those ordinances.
Next
Yeah,
department.
for sure. Yeah, on that. But it's just, I've seen her at meetings where she really doesn't contribute anything. And I'm like, why is she here? And I know we're paying. And I mean, I'm just trying to, we're trying to budget, we're trying to decide if we take money from EFA or give it to our budget. And it seems like in this sense, we should be more conservative, in my opinion, about when we use her. Because we're trying to be on a budget here and that's what it takes. So I'd like for us to be more mindful.
I would say she does ask me, and I look at what's on the agenda and assess what legally, but yes, sometimes she comes to a meeting and you don't ask her questions. But I worry about there being a time that you want her, and no, she's not gonna sit on standby for us at 9 o'clock at night. I mean, that's not appropriate, so. it
Oh, no.
really Of what is legal in nature that's.
I mean, don't we look at the agenda beforehand and can't we think that we're gonna ask her a question beforehand and talk to you about it? I mean, I feel like that's our job, is to be looking at our agenda ahead of time to know if we're gonna need to ask her a question. That could just be answered in an email. So I just, I'm just trying to be like mindful because I really do think we need to be budgeting wisely. So that's all. That's my feedback. I'm fine with you guys putting the 90,000 in for the year. We'll probably end up spending it, but I just think twice. Maybe we should all look at the agendas and determine, maybe even as a group email, you could ask us, do we think we need her,
I guess what I would encourage you all to do is come to the office and come take a look at an invoice. Because the time she spends at a meeting is a drop in the bucket compared to all the time she spends, with all due respect, answering a lot of your one-on-one questions. And so I've said this many times before, that perhaps you might consider running your question through me before you call Attorney Madsen, because I don't cost you.
Well, I definitely do. I'm not, don't talk to me about that because I always forward them to her. So I hear that too. So I think we all need to be very mindful of this because at 170 an hour, we should not be just asking dumb questions, or we should run it through you first because we need to save money somehow. We're 300,000 in the hole this year. So that's just going to get worse next year. at the way we were spending. So that's my 2 cents.
However, 170 for an attorney is not expensive. I
Yeah,
think.
it's inexpensive. And I just think sometimes, no matter how much we prepare in the moment, especially with action items or anything quasi judicial, we just have to be open to the reality that there will be in the moment questions.
Or then the town gets sued
She needs to be
out of nowhere.
able to answer them. We may screw up and won't be paying more than $90,000 for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy I mean, again, I don't want to waste her time. So what I also I'm really mindful of is when I have her drive up here. Like, I won't have her drive up here if there's not enough on the agenda to make that make sense. So, all right.
Chelsea doesn't charge us.
So
For a lot of
a
stuff.
bit of the revenue, kind of sorry, going to the revenue is construction and demolition. I alluded to this the other night. The CND program is where we charge a deposit, we return a portion of the deposit. It's really not working because we don't have the capacity to run this program. So I'm offering 3 options. I think we one is just to suspend the program and not have any fees. The downfall of that is those fees are what funds your sustainability coordinator and staff. Option number 2 is to charge a sustainability fee, which could be a flat fee or a percentage for all permits that goes towards sustainability. It creates a revenue stream for staff. And I really like number 3, which is to charge a sustainability fee, but then if a builder wants to fill out the power or the spreadsheet and get their money back, they can get 50% of their permit fees. Some of these permit fees run in the thousands.
I like 3.
So I like 3 as well. So we'd like to come back to you then with a recommendation of what that flat fee is. It's easier probably for us to actually do a percentage because that's how we calculate all permits, is a percentage off of your project valuation. So we'll come back to you with that if there's an agreement that you like 3.
I like 3. How much money are we talking about total?
So the CND program brings
So
in,
currently, there's 24,000 sitting that that's the 70% that has been
Right.
sitting as a liability, so you never see it, right?
Right.
And the auditor has brought that up. I mean, at some point, either I book it to revenue,
Right.
right? And actually,
going to.
Brett has been, I did reimburse 3 of them in the
Right.
past. Haven't done any in 3 years, but she's done about 3. So we're down to 24,000 is what we have available that we're gonna probably, not all 24. We cannot,
So
obviously,
15 to
stuff from
18,
this year, I cannot, let that go, but she's gone through them all, right? And whatever amount we come up with, we'll book as revenue.
yeah, I think we'd like to
In
come back
23.
though and
Oh,
recommend that.
no, you guys wanted to do that in
We
24.
want to book it
24.
Yeah.
Right.
And we'd like to come back to you with a sustainability fee for all projects. So currently the CND is run kind of dependent on your project, but we think that there's an opportunity to say, you're gonna build here, help to offset it with some sustainability. I mean, and small, so even if you're just pulling like a quick little roof permit, maybe it's an extra $5, but those are the things that could go in. But your large demolitions,
Yeah.
your big scale new builds would of course have a higher fee because it's gonna be a percentage of your valuation.
So
But
all-
I'm confused. We're charging them a fee for the sustainability. And that money just goes to the sustainability board. That's how it's been going lately.
I mean, it would go into the zero waste fund, but we believe that the zero waste fund should be treated like the conservation trust fund and the Eldora money, that it should be up to SAB's discretion because they have no revenue stream. So it's up to SAB to recommend how the fund should be spent. But currently, C&D program helps to offset the sustainability coordinator.
Gotcha.
So just to clarify, any permit, I don't know if that's right, yeah, but any permit would have a percentage of that, and that would all go into
Correct.
this.
And we're not looking to be earth shattering by any means. We want to be reasonable, but we're running 100 permits a year. That's a pretty solid foundation for SAP to operate off of. And
Are you
Actually,
already charging this fee?
we charge construction and demolition for all new builds and demolition.
And
But
how
what-
much was raised this year in that fee program that went to sustainability?
4,000.
No, that's
that's
the
all.
beginning of time.
That's from the beginning of time.
Yeah, it's not
I'm sorry, how much was that? 4,000?
24,000 since the beginning of time, whenever that was. That was
Okay.
before.
And nobody's actually gotten any money back because nobody's brought back the paperwork.
Three-
for their Deposit.
Three people.
So everybody's paying this already. This is not a new fee.
What we're recommending though is that it be that it be a fee that is tacked to all permits, not just new builds and construction.
Yeah, I'm kind of against that personally, but the not adding, I like the other fee you guys had for the big builds and stuff, yeah. Those were for big construction projects, not just homeowners doing things.
Okay. Well, how standard is this across other municipalities? Because I feel like I've like lived in other areas and there's always like a percentage or, you know, an administrative fee. I don't know if that's. what
Yeah,
you
so
call it.
we have so for your standard permit, we're gonna have, that's maybe not like a roof. We're gonna have a plan review fee, a permit fee, a use tax and a sales tax.
Yeah.
And so this would just be a supplemental fee. I don't have, so we didn't know what you wanted to do here. So I guess I'd like an opportunity to go back and tell you, you charge it for all permits, you're looking at this. If you
Right.
charge it for just your new build
Yeah.
and your demolition, you're looking at this. And give me a chance to come back to you on the 7th with this broken down a little bit more, because I don't have those answers for you right now, but
But this would also offer, Tanya, just to be clear, we're talking about the option that, the alternative that proposes a 50% refund if they divert waste.
correct.
And so they can get
So
reimbursed
we're back to the
50%.
same scenario, really,
Not
that
quite.
we've been doing.
Not
But
quite.
if you're building something, you're not making a lot of waste, you know?
Oh,
So
yeah.
like, how are you gonna ask for a receipt from the charm or something? Like, so there's still gonna be an administrative aspect to this that you guys didn't have the bandwidth to handle before. So yeah, I do want this coming back with more details. I'm not for it being for all projects. I'm for it being it for the way it was before. I'm not into new fees right now. People are strapped all over the place. We don't need to be anytime. I mean, any project is already costing homeowners an arm and a leg, and just adding more to it is just, to me, doesn't seem like a kind thing to do right now. But if it's the same fee that people have been used to paying for the past how many years, then I think that's fine. Number 3 is good.
Yeah, that's be a comparable fee. It wouldn't be an increase in fee. It would just be.
But what we are saying here is that it would be for all projects.
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. It's
I'm
just
in favor of
considering.
all projects.
I'm in favor.
Me too.
Because you can also, again, you can always get 50% refund
Yeah,
on all projects.
but not your whole fee. So your
Right.
project could have plan review, use tax, sales
Right.
tax, permit fee, PIFs, tax, I mean, the whole spectrum. You can get your permit fee, but your permit fee for some of those large scales are $2,000 to $3,000, and we're saying we can give you 50%. Because what that does is it allows us to still cover Brit's time and pay our safe build invoice. We want to be able to make sure we're doing both of those. So 50% felt appropriate of your permit fee if you're very passionate and you want to go through the process. And we're here to support you. We just can't support 100 builders. Like, Brit only has so much time to be able to do this, and that's always been the struggle. And Nikki tried with one of her employees to help with this program, and that was a struggle. Like, we've tried to be creative over the years of how to make this program work, and just are not there. And when a sustainability coordinator comes online, let's reimagine this. But for now, we like the sustainability fee
Right.
because it hits that kind of. And when Brit reached out to C&D, people who pay the deposit, not all of them responded, but some who did, our email said, and if you don't want to file for this, just so you know, it goes to sustainability. If people are like, that's awesome,
Go for
take
it.
my money.
Right.
Yeah, book it, because that's really cool. You're going to use it for sustainability.
Right. Yeah. The core of the issue here is that this program is not sustainable.
Correct.
You know, sorry, no pun intended, but it's not workable. It is
Correct.
current. And so regardless of how we go about in doing the fee structure or whatever, the crux of it is that we just can't.
Boulder County has one, and they have a whole team dedicated to this. And we've got a hey, Britt, do you have any time to spare to it? And the answer is no.
So this is not in our budget yet, correct? So how much money? Give me lots of money, okay?
Well,
Okay.
that's what she has to work on.
I haven't done the work yet because I didn't.
Hey.
We weren't sure. All right, so we'll look for number 3. IT, here we go. So we put out our RFP. We were surprised. We got 6 responses. We met with 5. The only reason we met with 5 is the 6 was just way too high for us, and there's just no reason to meet. After meeting, we felt like we should continue to explore all mountain technologies and concentrics, with maybe a little more emphasis on all mountain technologies. They're both similar in price. They have the flat fee, and then of course additional fees that they have to come out and those types of things. But all mountain technologies, that's a cloud-based only. So they would move us to Office 365. What we need to explore with them is can they handle all of our software, our internet, all the components? Are we a good candidate for cloud-based services? Otherwise, Concentrix would be kind of another one we'd consider, but they are server-based. So we're just are kind of wanting to see if you have any concerns.
We're currently server-based,
Yes,
right?
currently
We've
server-based.
got how many
We're-
servers that we're updating? Like
2
six?
servers at our different facilities, wastewater and town hall.
And I have a comment on that. Talked to Randy today. So we have $10,000 budgeted this year for a new server. Okay? The
Right.
gal we talked to at All Mountain, which Brandon I love. Obviously, if we were to go that route, I'm not spending the 10
Hold on.
grand.
What kind of server do you need?
No, that's what I'm saying.
We are very interested in cloud-based because, you know, from an emergency services standpoint, if our community unfortunately burns down, a server does us zero good.
Yeah.
So
And
that's what I was-
many of us struggle to work remotely, which we are still very much a hybrid crew because we're server-based. And so there's a lot of interest in going to this cloud-based operating system. Office 365, for those of you who are familiar, offers a great amount of services that we would love to have. But that's, the difference is that All Mountains will not even service us. this
That's right.
service. We would have to make the immediate switch, and they'd let us pay off the switch over 3 years.
So what I was saying is, we budgeted 10 grand this year in 23 for a new server. If we go that route, we're not spending that money.
I see.
The 10 grand on obviously a server.
So if you can't tell, we're very interested in exploring All Mountain Technologies to see if that works.
Okay.
And if that works, that's what we're gonna recommend as staff we go with. If it doesn't work, Concentrix would be kind of
Right.
the second for us as a
Concentrix
server.
is who's doing our email right now,
Concentrix is who's doing our email.
which is.
You don't like it?
It's sketchy, that's for sure.
Well, I guess I would say, don't be spending, give me the specs of what you need for any servers, because I have a warehouse full of them.
I think we're just hoping to not be server based.
I understand. But you know, even if there's for some reason that that we need to keep a server on site for some sort of failover or whatnot, like just
Sure.
don't spend any money, get me the specs. And I'll get you the
Yeah, and so back to what Randy was saying today too, is he said that, you know, if we stay server-based, there's an urgency to get that going because one of the hard drives is failing. He just wanted us all to know that.
So Randy obviously didn't submit an RFP. He's been very supportive of
Yeah.
our search
Cool.
for a
Very.
new IT provider. But yeah, we ultimately feel like this is the way to go. And so we'd like kind of the green light to continue to explore primarily with All Mountain Technologies to see if they can actually support all of our needs on
Last
a
year,
cloud-based service.
Yeah, I did also reach out. A big deal is going to be our software program that we use. And so I reached out to them. They're going to give us a quote what that would look like going cloud
Is this
based.
the thing you want to ditch?
What about a ditch?
You know, isn't that the thing you want to get rid of? It's so kludgy and,
Wanting is one thing, it won't, you know, because it's so,
okay.
anyhow.
So integrated.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear you support it, because last year when we talked to him about it,
Well,
and I
he
mentioned
doesn't,
the cloud,
he does
no,
not.
no, no.
Oh, no, he doesn't like the cloud. He supports us going to a new provider.
He's old school.
He's still not gonna love, he doesn't, and I will say, he didn't love, All Mountain Technologies was not his primary choice. Concentrix.
That's the endorsement I need.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
And we did ask
Yeah.
the gal at All Mountain, why would he be against it? And she said he doesn't understand it.
Right,
Yeah.
it's old school. It's
Yeah.
old school networking versus
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
So,
So we're interested in the fact that
We don't need those
she
kind of peoples.
looked at her proposal,
yeah.
she was at like 33,000, and when we called and we said, we're interested, but we need,
40,000.
oh yeah, we need you to become competitive, she was like, no problem. And
Did,
she
wait,
brought
what
it
was
down.
40,000?
She was about $4,000 a month, and she brought it down to
To
2,500,
Yeah.
and was like, yeah, no
All
problem.
Mountain did.
Yes.
So they matched the Concentrix.
They matched, because we went back and realized this was gonna be very financially based, so we went back to all providers that had given us really high costs and said, we need you to come down to 2,500, and she didn't even bat an eye.
But
She
we're
was like,
still talking about an additional transition cost too.
Right,
That's
potentially,
Yeah.
so originally she said 17,000, but then we determined that not every user is gonna need the full Office 365 suite, so that number will likely
And
be
you can pick and
changed.
choose.
You can, because so many of our users, our staff, especially Public Works, are only gonna need emails.
Yeah.
So we'll basically identify how many full Office 365 365 users we need, and then how many's email based, and then she'll adjust her price, but she's willing to let us pay it off over 3 years.
What
If we sign a 3-year contract.
What references have they brought you and how do they check out?
Yep, so All Mountain Technology brought us the town of Eagle, and it was actually their IT department, as well as the town manager for Minturn, and they both were like, this is the best IT company we've ever had, hands down incredible. Concentrix brought us, what is that, Sedgwick County, who had great things to say. Their feedback was a little bit of, kind of,
Healthcare.
they were very healthcare oriented. They're less on the municipal services. They do support Sedgwick County, but do much more of the health department side. So they do hospitals, where All Mountain Technologies has rave reviews from municipalities. And what I really appreciated was the town of Eagle. It was their IT director. It was like, I've never worked with such an incredible IT company.
Looks like they're in Edwards and Arvada, so if we have someone that should be here, someone.
Yeah, we really appreciated how she spoke about her team too.
Yeah.
It was like,
She was
she was the best interview we had of all of them.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, it's the assist cost we're waiting on any day now.
Mhm.
And I wonder if that's just gonna be nuts. That's not in my budget yet, so.
Just tell them you'll have to do better than that.
So
So-
initially 17 grand, initially, that was just the number that was. floating
Yeah,
around.
but we have been talking.
Divided over
3
3
years.
years. And you know, if I
But
split
that's
that
on
up,
my end.
if I split that up, that's not just all gonna be in the general fund. I'm gonna split that up to be between all the funds. So if I have 5 grand divided by all funds,
Oh, okay.
that's not important.
But again, we wanted to discuss with you first before we further engage Pam.
Right.
I'd like to go back to Pam with All Mountain Technology and say,
Further engaged.
we're very interested. Now let's really talk what this looks like. Because that 17,000 was assuming all 25 staff members
Right.
were going to get Office
Right.
365, and
Got
that's
it.
very
Okay.
unrealistic.
And yeah, there's the bandwidth issue, et cetera, that she
Yeah.
hasn't, you know.
Oh, there's, yeah.
Make it so.
Yeah, so we're gonna engage her.
Okay, good.
All right, Parks Fund. Okay, marijuana.
Sweating through all of this.
You have the marijuana tax. We just need to know kind of what line items would you like to allocate to the parks fund for the marijuana sales tax. We're recommending it's parks maintenance and the building maintenance funds, and just start there. And then year after year, we can kind of decide if we need to change that, but get started with just moving these 2 lines out of the general fund over into the parks fund.
So did we actually see the dip in marijuana tax that was projected all at the beginning?
We have received 48,000 so far
Okay.
versus 120 grand budget.
Wow,
So it's,
yay.
So that's
so
why
that's
we're
why
recommending
we're,
these
Yeah.
lines.
that's why we're only grabbing 2, because I've gotta have enough revenue.
I've been
Sure.
really trying to do my part.
So great.
Where to now?
Like I said, fix it tax deductible.
So
Hey, Rita, this is Tanya. So we budgeted like 120,000 and we made 48. Is that
So far, yeah.
because sales were down from the year before on the marijuana?
That'd be my
Really?
guess,
Like-
yes. Oh, I'm sorry. This is not, no, this is marijuana through town, right?
Yeah.
The state, the new tax. So I cannot compare it to anything
Oh,
else.
I thought we had a certain amount budgeted for this year.
We did, 120,000.
Where did we come up with that number?
At
In
the
the first-
time when we were going through budgeting with Attorney Mattson, there
Yeah.
was formula we did, same with actually the general fund, the 0.25%. Obviously, 4% equaled this, and then we were able to come up with what 0.25 could be.
Gotcha.
The
Sounds like
same-
sales are down in town
Yes, they are.
all across the board. Okay, well, this is great. I think this is a good allocation for the money.
Okay, good. Everybody good with that?
Yep. What about the psilocybin tax?
But mushrooms are-
We're gonna start capturing now.
now the time.
Okay, just real quick, that's the idea for the next retreat, okay, guys? I'm not going otherwise, just kidding.
Fair enough. Okay, revenue time.
Whatever it takes, Tanya, whatever.
Parking, I basically stole this slide from last year. So paid parking, there are 67 spaces between the visitor center and First Street. Using a parking calculator that I stole from Idaho Springs, our potential revenue could be 138,000. We would need to purchase the kiosks and the tech services for just kind of that upfront cost. It sounds like we'll talk to the DDA about.
Yes.
We've already brought you, Britt already did all the research into 3 separate companies. We already brought that to you. We recommended interstate parking. At the time, we were gonna engage them, but realized that First Street didn't have enough parking for the return on investment to make sense. So we wanted to wait until the parking lot was done. Now we have the municipal code challenge that should be done soon. So we'd like to engage interstate parking now so that when January hits and that ordinance is in effect, we can get started.
And can you remind me, Interstate does Idaho Springs as well? Is that
Yep,
right?
interstate parking does Idaho Springs, and they'll handle all of the enforcement on the back end for us. So there's no downtown staff time, and they take a percentage of the pay.
Do they do any other local communities that we know?
Britt, are you still there? She is on. Britt?
She's still awake.
Yes,
sorry.
I guess it's just a,
State parking does other communities besides Idaho Springs off the top of your head?
What was that?
Remember if interstate parking served any other communities besides Idaho Springs, if you recall? Do you remember?
I believe Lions, maybe. And I feel like there was another one. I could do some digging.
Lions does pay parking.
I have to get back to it.
yeah. It's just because Boulder uses something different. A lot of people are coming up from Boulder.
Sure.
I used it in Idaho
Just
Springs,
suck
that's great.
It was good.
Yeah. And they have the kiosk and the QR codes.
Which I think.
The reason we want to keep the kiosk is because not everyone
Yeah, yeah.
in this community
Oh, and we're
loves
gonna
the
do
QR.
those 2 kiosks
2 kiosks, one in Visitor Center, one on Third Street, and then of course the signs everywhere.
and the kiosk next to the, accessible parking spots.
Yes,
So would paid parking be coming back to the board as an item in and of itself for the town to be doing paid parking, not?
no, I mean, the ordinance will come back to you to allow paid parking throughout town, but this, we're not recommending paid parking be an SRU. Like, I don't really know what you're voting on at that point. So you're, by telling us,
It's like for the town itself to choose to do paid parking versus not, is that?
this is you deciding at this moment on this, you already decided last year, this year's budget has paid parking in it.
Yeah.
We just could never execute it. So basically you approving this budget and approving that ordinance gives town staff the green light to go.
So when we approve this, so you mean next Tuesday, or not tonight? but-
You're approving it next week?
No, I'm sorry.
We approved it last year.
This last year, this is
Yeah.
literally the exact same slide as last year.
We're a year out of approving it.
Okay,
They just haven't been able
I was against it quietly. But I'd like to see,
Again, I'll tell you, this revenue is in that budget.
okay, what I'd like to see is do something for locals.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people are.
No, we are.
No, and that hasn't changed. This is revenue. If you look at the calculator also takes into effect, you know, that there would be gaps in pay because people can run into the deli and grab their sandwich or have the locals component. So that hasn't changed.
Use it. with-
Yeah, and so I guess I hear what you're saying. Yes, town staff can bring back to you a informational item of like, we've engaged interstate, here's how it's going to work for residents. And we're gonna need some time to pull that all together.
'Cause I think
But I think-
residents maybe don't realize that.
Sure,
Frankly.
sure.
They should be the backup.
No, I'm,
That's not.
right, there will be more conversations about the town specific, but this is basically telling us, yes, we can keep going.
People feel my ear about this for the last 2 days.
Right, but the recommendation is not to make it a special review use, it just, that's just so many steps for what, you know, you're either charging or not.
Yeah.
There's not really a lot to discuss. So, but yeah, we can talk.
How is this gonna be enforced? Will our police officers be checking that sort of stuff or
Interstate,
parking
James,
enforces it.
how?
we'd have to get back to
They
you with.
said-
Oh, go ahead, Britt.
I was gonna say they send an attendant, and that can be, basically they work out to where it can come out of your revenue, like a very small percentage, if it makes sense for you. We have on it, they had tried to present, but we weren't ready.
Oh,
It's a percentage of the amount we make.
Right, but again, just a reminder, we haven't engaged interstate parking yet, so we
Yeah.
do need we have to have those conversations of like, how will the 15 minutes work?
Right.
How will the resident piece work? We
Yeah.
need the opportunity to engage them, but currently the code limitation didn't even allow us to engage this
Right.
far.
So the tech services, so the upfront costs, I got it, you know, for the hardware and the kiosk and everything, but those tech services are a percentage of revenue. So we're not gonna be paying a fixed amount.
Not annually, but up front you have to pay that fixed amount.
Right.
For them to get all of our software set up so that it's all running.
Yeah, that's the
through town.
20 grand upfront cost.
Right,
That potential DDA might pay, right?
correct.
Right, okay, so they're saying 10 to 15 here, so the 20
You're
grand.
right. I see that we've added the per year and that's not quite accurate.
Well-
It's this flat fee to get the whole software set up so that everything's running through the town of Nederland. There's a dedicated Nederland website where you can
Okay.
ask questions. And so it's all the back end IT work related to interstate parking.
Okay, so that's the parking kiosk plus the tech services startup.
Correct.
It comes out to about 20 grand that
Correct.
we would like to ask the NDDA to pay for. Got it, okay.
Yes.
It is worth asking, that 138 is a total amount, or is it the amount less?
It's the
technical?
total amount.
So we can actually budget 138,000 then.
We can or cannot.
Because we'll have costs of goods, we'll have the cost of goods sold, we'll have
Right.
the monthly fee to
Right.
pay them. So this is top line revenue, it's not,
Right.
it's not
Well,
bottom.
Okay,
This is
where's
gross,
the
not
monthly
net.
fee? I guess we don't know that yet.
I mean, we're gonna have to engage interstate parking.
Okay,
So
I
is
guess
this-
we need, because right now, I mean, we're.
Unless the
we just
calculator
got-
factored that in.
I can't look at the calculator because I'm sharing my screen
Sure,
with you all, so
But I
it's not
budgeted 85 for now.
You budgeted 85 for the year
in
Yes, ma'am.
revenue.
in
Yeah,
revenue. So that's, yeah, so that would be the 138, I would
Right.
suspect.
And I don't know-
expenses.
You know,
So,
we must have talked about that.
so 85,
All right, we don't wanna.
Okay, so it's about a
try to go
60%.
too aggressive in our
Yeah.
approach here
okay,
of saying,
But
this is what we hope based on the calculator. And so the calculator it's a Idaho Springs tool that they use to help budget. So we're being a bit more conservative in our revenue because we don't wanna blow it out of the water, but this is a potential based on the calculator.
it's still 60%, that's still like pretty
Yeah.
damn good.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, good.
I'm just kind of off what Eric said a bit ago about like people from up in Boulder being used to that. Is this, like, did we price out a bunch more companies or is this more than?
Britt met with 3 other companies and we feel this is the one that can offer us the best services. I mean, yeah, I understand people coming up from Boulder, but it's all QR codes. Like, there's
Right.
nothing different than, like a QR code is a QR
Well,
code.
no, it is different because if you have an app that you've already signed up for
Right.
and you already have saved,
And
you know,
pull in-
your payment information and everything, it's much easier to just pay for parking rather than sit there and being like, it's
We're
getting
downloading it.
Superior RTD has a,
You might
has
have
one
that
already.
exception.
Like, I'll go and park there for the week and go fly somewhere.
Yeah.
And
but it's just like us going down to Boulder, I mean, I
RTD
don't
is
have
a
the
good
app.
network that we could-
It's always a one-off type of thing, I mean,
I
people,
get what Eric's saying, like I have the Park Mobile app for
Yeah,
Boulder,
I
so I
do.
can just quickly like select.
I do for sure.
Yeah, I have the
Zone
park
and
mobile
I
on my phone right
Yeah.
now.
I mean, ultimately, I would argue, I personally, as staff, care less about mirroring Boulder. I care more about what's gonna be the biggest bang for our buck.
Sure.
If it's not the same,
Agreed.
it's not the same.
Sure.
And we felt interstate could
Yeah.
offer the best.
People-
Yeah, and a big thing that sold us on this is a lot of those like Park Mobile and all those apps are great. I use them too, but there's no customer service for them. So for this one, their customer service is based out of Denver and you can get someone 24/7. And you just can't get those with those apps. Like I've definitely had it happen before and I couldn't even get a hold of anyone to give me pricing options. Like that's how, and they have very low reviews from a customer service side of like, yep, never got a hold of anyone. And that's from the people the towns that use them and the residents and visitors that use them.
I'm sold.
Great.
So the kiosk would allow people, like, if they won't have to use their phone, basically.
They can use
They,
coins.
they have a company that does, you know, if they have.
I don't know where they would get them.
They can use quarters.
Or a credit card.
They're really,
Yeah.
really.
I will say I've used this interstate parking. I've used their, I use it quite often when I go to Denver and a lot of their little machines have like a credit card option on the back where you can just slide it in and it pays for it if you don't have the app.
Cool. Thanks, Britt. All right, speed cameras. We are recommending consideration of speed cameras, where you would place them in 2 permanent locations near East Street on the highway, grabbing people coming in and out of Boulder, as well as 1 mobile camera. Your potential revenue, this is according to data analysis provided by the vendors we've been talking to, is potentially $30,000 a month. You have 2 options where you could look at, $15,000 a month where we contract with an agency that handles all components of the speed cameras, or we can buy them ourselves. But then we need to have a third party come and manage them. Don't quite know the cost of that yet, still working on that. And then, of course, the software. A lot of jurisdictions are doing this. Vera Mobility is who we recommend contracting with. They did a data analysis and they were the ones who helped narrow in on that $30,000 a month. If we paid them 15, so we're looking at a net of potentially 15,000, that's how much we could bring in speeding tickets, based on their data. And again, the Boulder uses Vera Mobility, and Commander Vanderlist and Sergeant Merriam did suggest we go the route of speed cameras.
I hate everything about this slide.
So
I love it.
can the locals also get waived?
I agree with you, Eric.
Or like
They do
plates?
speed limit.
So what I'll tell you is, again, here's yet another where we put it in the budget as revenue. So if we pull this out, Rita, how far do we
We're-
get?
Yeah, but you don't really know you're gonna make 30,000 a month. Like,
So the thing about Vera Mobility.
you're gonna make 15,000 a month, maybe. Maybe most likely it's more like 10. And
Actually,
once
exactly.
people start realizing it's happening, then we'll get the effect we want, which is people won't be speeding as much, but we're gonna make less money.
We've got
So-
all kinds of visitors,
The thing about Vera Mobility is that they are not in the business of making us pay them and not get revenue in return. There's no benefit to them. So why I recommend working with them is if we're starting to see that we're not getting the revenue and this is costing us more, we're gonna reconsider our placement or our approach, and they're going to work with us on that, because it makes zero sense for us to be paying something we don't see the revenue for.
Man, I ain't paying no ticket unless somebody's pulling me over and handing it to me in person.
You're right. I think I'm paying one, I just got cambered in Boulder a couple days ago.
Right, you run that risk of people who choose not to pay for them because it doesn't go onto there's no
Yeah,
points,
Yeah,
there's
no
no,
points.
but you also have
They
lots
have
of
to-
people who
They
choose to pay
have to.
tickets.
But it goes to collections.
Okay.
Oh, it
Anyhow,
goes to collections.
oh, I did only budget 120. So that's
So
10.
if you're from out of state and you get one of these tickets,
That's
it
also
will go to collections if you don't pay it.
Is that true?
Who collects the Vera, whatever the name of the company is, Vera Mobility? They
So
have people.
We want to engage Vera Mobility because they
Yeah.
literally handle everything from
Conservative.
installation, maintenance, monitoring, and administration. All
Gotcha.
for $1,000.
Well,
They can legally count it as debt unless they serve you.
Yeah,
the person.
well, yeah, that's
That
what I'm.
legislation changed, that's why
Oh,
we're
it
looking
did?
at this.
I see.
No
Oh,
longer have to be.
wait, I didn't hear that. What's that?
I want this in my town, that's all I'm saying. I don't want it.
I want it.
I don't want it either, Eric.
we don't want to.
I
but
think
don't
it's
know if I
awful.
do.
It's awful. Surveillance state nonsense. I hate it.
Well, then go the speed limit, damn it.
I do.
I do.
Yeah, I do too. It's
So I
more
think,
of a-
again, where I guess
We have police now. Why can't our police be out there pulling people over? Like,
Well,
we're paying for them. You know, I thought they'd be the ones pulling people over.
But just like any technology though, this enables them to spend time where it's important, right? So it's on boots on the ground in the community rather than making sure that they're pulling over people. Let the robots do this part.
Yeah, but the robots get it wrong. What if somebody, borrowed your car? Who gets the ticket? There's all kinds of reasons you can argue these things. I know because I've done them.
You go to court and you show that you're not the one driving the car and it gets dropped.
What he said.
Yeah, but it's not going to go to our court.
My time. No,
Municipal ticket, it does go to our court if they want to fight it.
Yeah.
don't like it.
So is it doing just plate recognition in general, or is it
Just
just,
pictures and videos.
but
That's the
nonstop?
last-
So it's everyone that's coming and going, they're paying attention to, which is.
Yeah.
I think that's the.
Well, no, it just snaps a picture of the cars that are
warm and
speeding.
fuzzy about.
I am so tired of those motorcycles that go down the damn
I have a
road.
lot of people in your neighborhood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but they're not taking a picture of that as soon, this is just right there by the East Street.
recommending that it go to driving people up and down from Boulder,
Yeah.
but it can go wherever you want. It doesn't-
but it's exactly gonna grab them though, Tanya, because it's gonna be probably the entry point into town where it drops down to what,
Like
25?
goes 45, 35, 25, like that.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. I mean,
So
that's what-
where is the camera? Is it at the 25 or the 15 or the 35?
Our police officers sit by the welcome sign.
Don't tell
which is
anyone.
where They,
Duh, everyone's gonna know. I'm gonna tell everybody. We'll see it.
Is this gonna be one of those ones that blind you?
no.
Yes.
I'll never vote for in a trillion years.
So I think we need to understand, again, we already, when we say we're in negative 300 plus in the negative, we assume that you would maybe want this revenue. If you don't, there needs to be an understanding, you take it from 350
It's gonna be
to $470,000 in the negative.
Yeah, but I don't think that this is a realistic revenue anyway.
I don't either.
It's totally absurd.
We need to understand what consensus is, whether we're keeping it
Can
or.
we get more data that proves that that number is good enough?
There's no way to.
So again, I only budgeted 10 grand, which I still think is obviously a lot, but 10 grand per month. I did not do the 15.
There's no, I can't, we can't prove that to you because they're not engaging.
But 10 grand a
By
month.
budgeting 10 grand, you're expecting 25 grand a month, so that we put in 15.
Say it again.
Because
This scenario here would give you 15,000 net, right? Which I did not calculate 15,000 net per month. I only did 10.
10 net.
Right.
Which
Yes.
means you'd be getting 20,000 a month.
Potential revenue is 25,000.
120,000 per year.
In net.
Yeah.
In net,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, which is
But
suggesting that
But
the
we have to
total
pay
revenue.
them
for
15,
this
so it's
weekend.
basically, you're assuming we're gonna make 25,000 a month.
Yeah.
They're getting 15, we're getting 10. That's how you're budgeting. Make sense?
Sure.
And the question is, will we get 20?
Well,
Right.
I was going with, we are making 30. I was under the assumption we're gonna make 30, right? But then I'm just budgeting conservatively.
Right.
I'm cutting it down. Well, I'd rather be safe. Only let's do 10,000 per month instead of 15. If I get 15, great. Even, if we get 10, that's great. That's the issue, right, with budgeting. When we budget revenue like this, that is an unknown. We could be in the same boat as we are with the sales tax revenue, right? That we budgeted at 135,000 for the general fund, and it's not happening.
Or do we have any benchmark in terms of what the police officers are issuing in terms of tickets currently and
It's
the
fallen
revenue?
so much, it's amazing.
Oh, okay, don't get too
It's
excited,
so-
but
yeah.
but that could be a justifiable
That
benchmark
could be.
in terms of what we're getting.
No, it's a speeding ticket right now is $165.
Right, so how,
Jesus.
160.
Oh, those are only 40?
Right.
That's what the new legislation.
okay, but how,
Listening up to 24/7 writing.
but what's our revenue right now coming in on a per month
Ah,
basis?
she'd have that.
I can tell you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because irregardless, it's at least a proxy to where we can approximate, right? It's maybe not gonna be,
And that's very few tickets written. In reality, I mean. what do we
So-
get, maybe 25, 30 tickets a month?
So it used to be hardly anything since I started working, and Troy sent me for the last 2 months about $5,000
well, I was
in
just gonna-
August alone.
so I was just gonna say 30 tickets in 1 month at 165, that's $5,000.
Yeah.
So
This would do that
That's-
with tickets in 2 days.
that's requiring a person, a real life person there, to pull those over. So,
Which I think is what it should take.
but I'm just saying, let's just look at this, 5,000 at 30. So how many people are they missing? That number isn't that far fetched.
Yeah,
Well,
but
at what point does it give you a ticket? If you're 5 miles over, 10 miles over, 15 miles over, is it $165 for each ticket?
It'll be,
No, it'll be only 40.
with no points. And that's a good point. Like, do they give you a 5? I mean, is it just hard line 35 is 35, or do you get?
I don't know, I got out of it.
Yeah,
because
I don't recall what
can't be
the like threshold is. I'd have to go back to Vera.
And
what's-
it's a supplement.
If I remember correctly, when we talked to them for the first time, it was, you could set that.
Right, that's what I thought. And we would have ASA, I think, help set that.
I mean, just like I wouldn't write a ticket for, unless you were doing about 10 over, you can adjust this, like, well, we're not gonna, if you're doing 7 or 8 over, we wanted to give them a ticket.
But I guess the one thing that, obviously this is, one thing for consideration is that we can engage. And Vera Mobility is not gonna wanna continue to serve us if we're not bringing in revenue, and you can start to see how
So get out and
how
speak.
you feel about it.
So, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the question
That's
is
my
donation.
question. Like, I didn't quite understand that logic, but so there's not like a long-term contract for them. but we have-
No, we're gonna have to enter into an agreement, but I think, what Vera Mobility kept telling me is that there's no reason they would do this work if we were just gonna pay them and there was no revenue coming back to the town of Nutter. It's not work. That's not a good business model.
Is it a year-long contract or?
I'd have to go back to them because I haven't, again, I don't engage far enough into these until I know if this is even what you wanna do. So perhaps we should next year, but we don't gauge that far.
I'm willing to try it.
That's a lot of tickets at $40.
It is,
There's a lot of speeders in the town of Netherlands.
that's 700.
It's amazing.
You could take
No,
it
I
almost
just,
every other
I
car.
just think it's unethical.
Yeah.
True.
I don't think it is. No,
You don't think what?
Speeding is unethical.
no, not really.
Well, that's.
I think speed limits are rather arbitrary.
Well,
I mean, they're
okay.
sort of,
Wow,
You're-
as somebody
you're
who grew
fair.
up with two police officers in the house, like.
Well, it's fair to think that, speeding is ethical.
I don't think it's explicit.
But I don't think that we should base our decision based on your, point of view that, really commonly, held law in our country is unethical, and we're not gonna do it.
So should be,
No,
should be
it's-
25.
I'm
tickets
not
a day.
against people writing people tickets
Does
for
that,
speeding,
does that seem reasonable?
but I think it should be up to
25
human
Yeah.
judgment
Doing it an hour.
on whether or not someone's actually driving in a reckless
do
manner
it.
that deserves
I
it.
can
I am
sit down and
not
write
kidding you,
tickets.
Billy, like, how many people we
Yeah.
watch just
No,
speed?
I hear people big screens on somebody like it's, there's so much noise, they're driving so fast.
It's constant.
Yeah, I would like my kids to, I would like to feel safer letting my kids ride their bikes.
Spreadsheet.
I don't know if this will make it safe. I think this just make a little more money.
Fewer people speeding will, and also making a little more
If
money.
that's the case, if that actually is the case, it actually reduces
So we
speeding.
still have.
I'm just not convinced it will.
Well, are we gonna end up having a discussion about where we set it? As a
Sure.
group?
Recommendation and where they did their data analysis was pulling data on the highway coming up from Boulder Canyon. Now, but
I
think
would not want it, if it just, I would say 10 miles over is when you get your ticket personally, but I think we need to have a discussion.
45.
Yeah, just go.
I mean, I think the question becomes, is there majority support to continue to explore this?
That's where we landed at
Or
odd
no?
number. I think we're at 3-3, man.
More.
I know, is there
Or,
majority
Carrie,
support to explore this further?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have 3 here, and you 2 are no, and Tanya.
I'm a no.
So it's split, so then it doesn't carry.
Don't proceed.
I
Well,
don't, did Billy, I mean, again, it's not,
It looks like he's
it's
thinking.
not saying you're committing, it's saying, yes, we're gonna leave it in the budget, that we're budgeting this revenue, and we're gonna continue to explore it and bring you back more information.
Let's do that.
But your budget will reflect this revenue.
I also
for the
want to know
time.
what the contract is like, if it's,
Sure.
is it a year, is it month by, you
Sure.
know?
Okay, so you have 4
Okay.
to move forward.
Yeah, I'll give you the 4th to bring it back to our next meeting.
So I just wanna make sure,
Yeah,
that
there's no point in engaging me.
when
Never gonna be for this.
This
And it's
budget on, before the 7th, it
I-
will
I would enjoy
include
it.
revenue under the assumption we're doing speed cameras.
so you're
I'll
gonna
just be,
see.
I'll be
$30,000 a month.
So we're gonna use reassumption.
No, I just don't want to point cameras
Yeah,
at
that's-
people in charge for shit. I just never want to do that
Do we
ever.
have anything to lose?
Never, ever.
Okay, we're ready?
No, no, I'm not, because, I mean, I said no, but I can change my mind. I said yes. So it'll, you know, you'll put it in the packet, it'll go out, public will see it, and you'll bring it on the 7th.
It's just going into the budget.
Right, it's going in the budget, but when
Your budget,
I mean, what I'm saying yes to is that you're exploring it to bring it back to us on the 7th,
Right.
but I'm not saying yes
Yeah,
to it.
proving anything.
no, I realize that. What I'm saying is that right now, the budget, with it being 300 plus in the negative, it reflects the assumption that this is revenue you want. So it would be a part of that assumption, and then you would have to decide,
Let's
take
put
it out.
55-mile-an-hour speed limit right
And
there.
also,
it's an understanding that if you take it out, you go from, say, negative 350,000 to negative 470,000. You just have to understand that.
So it might be nice to bring it back with it in it, right,
Correct.
120, you see what else looks awful. And then you
You
can
can make your decision.
It's just not a big dollar decision. Let's move on.
All right,
All right, the next one
it's
is,
gonna be a major, yeah.
Sure, but it's not a big dollar decision. This is a budgeting workshop.
okay, the next thing is the fee for EV chargers. Do not ask me for data, we don't have it. We are recommending though that we charge for EV chargers. The reason we don't have data is we don't have, we stopped working with ChargePoint a while ago, and so unfortunately we don't have data. But we do believe we should charge, everyone charges for EV chargers. We're like giving it away for free. We recommend charging like Boulder does, which is $1 per hour for both of our chargers, the level 2s, and then the fast chargers when they come online. But couldn't tell you how much revenue that's gonna be. It's just gonna be us exploring revenue and just becoming revenue, where we're not gonna offset it with an expenditure. It's just gonna become revenue.
So it's also not budgeted.
And there's no upfront costs or anything associated with that?
Nope, I mean, we're gonna have to reengage charge point, which will have a monthly fee, but that's.
But the, once on the level twos,
For the town.
the dollar makes sense, but on the level threes, since they're charging 5 times as fast, hands down, I'd pay you a lot more than a dollar. I think it's more like, I think per hour, I think, if I just go down to Boulder and park at Whole Foods and plug in there, it's about $5 an hour.
Yeah, I think we should charge a premium based on our location, like we pay at Ace.
Yeah.
How much do you wanna charge for the fast chargers versus the level twos?
The $5 an hour for the level threes, and then I think $1 an hour is reasonable for 2. We have data that says $1 an hour is reasonable. I know that, it's free downtown, but if I go up at the grade school, it's $1 an hour, I think, right?
No, we're just giving it away for free.
Up at the grade school?
No, I'm saying town.
Right. Yeah, and I can tell you because, Don left the cable behind in New Mexico and I had to go work that time. Then I go over sometimes at 10:30 at night and it's being used, and yeah, there's overnighters. So, yeah, I think that, I really think this fee of $2 or bumping it to $2.50, the level twos, is reasonable. Very
Yes, after 2 hours, yes, because people stay there all day.
Yeah, it does, level twos are excruciatingly slow sometimes, it can take a full 6 to 8 hours to charge, but I think after 2, you got what you need, there's other people that need it.
Right, so really, we're just recommending, happy to do that, we're just recommending just let this become a revenue stream, and we'll then in 2025 decide how much revenue and how can we utilize.
So that's just.
What are we gonna have to spend to get we've already bought the level 3 chargers, and when are we gonna get them installed, and what's the cost?
We have to upgrade the infrastructure over there, and so we're waiting for Excel to either do it for us or confirm that they'll reimburse us if we do it and then install them. But we have to install them no matter what by May, or we'll get the money back for these chargers.
Yeah.
So we're up against the time crunch.
Yeah, keep me posted on that one, I'm very interested in getting this one done.
Yep.
I've got.
Miranda, will people still be paying to park in addition to this extra fee? So they'll pay the fee to park and then they come in and pay this too?
That's generally not done.
The EV chargers, I would argue are exempt from paid parking because they have their own fee.
Yeah, but that's almost cheaper than paid parking.
I think incentivize EVs.
Motion won't work in my time.
Wait, what?
I would assume that's incentivizing, people purchasing EVs is that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, sure, you could charge them to park and charge them for their EVs if you wanted to.
Well, it seems like it's 2 different separate things. Yeah, I would want to because they're taking a parking spot. But
it's one that can't be used by anybody else.
true.
Yeah.
They're basically if they park there, they're getting the electricity for free. Because you would pay to park anywhere else in the parking lot.
I'll rent my car out.
We're at least making revenue from it, and by increasing these
I agree with that, yeah.
suggested fees.
Yeah, I think 520 is level 3, that's reasonable.
But we agreed we're not booking any of this revenue, right? Yet. So that's just an added benefit someday for me.
Move on.
All right, next thing is short-term rental regulatory fee. Sorry for the phone here. Thank you, Tom. We obviously, Attorney Madsen, Alan had to reach out to you to let you know about Telluride. Attorney Madsen offered some further clarification that you could charge a regulatory fee. Macy did an incredible job kind of estimating her time and determined that basically 25% of her time within a month is spent on short-term rentals. And then I know that was a question some of you had.
Yep.
And so the question is, do you want to charge a regulatory fee for short-term rentals? Telluride charges just shy of $900. Do you want to charge a flat fee? Yes or no? You have 50, and we recommend charging per bedroom, which is how we do occupational tax. So depending on your fee, we'd have to go back and do some calculations of how many bedrooms we have, which we can bring that back to you. But I think the question is, do you want this? And if so, how much?
Look, from what Jennifer said, like you have to do it to be compensated for a service, and basically her.
Right, so compensate.
Well, what's 25% of her salary and divide that by 57 and come up with a number that way, that's how I would do it.
So that's about $307, short-term rental.
Per bedroom or a house?
On
Per
there-
bed.
on there.
I guess I'd have to do a little bit more work by per bedroom. That's just by 57 short-term rentals. I'd have to do a little bit more
Okay.
math on that
It
one.
sounds reasonable.
I'd like to take 25% of Macy's salary.
That sounds,
I mean, yeah,
we can justify it easily, yeah.
Now we gotta go back and do some math.
And yeah, do include the fully loaded salary.
Yes, Rita, more.
All right, more money.
Okay, so we'll get back to you on the regulatory fee of exactly how much it would be per bedroom.
Can we bump
I
it up?
agree about the, I mean, yeah, I think.
Can we make as much money off of short-term rentals as a town?
So
as
I
possible?
think some jurisdictions, I think somebody had brought up, this is like a deputy, right? Paying all of a staff member who purely does short-term rentals. Like, that's a very different conversation. That's, but in some jurisdictions, you're looking at just paying like the full part-time employees dedicated to.
They hire
We,
somebody.
you don't want to charge so much that we're accused of essentially levying a tax that.
Right, if Macy's saying it's 25% of her time.
You know, I saw that breakdown, the legal breakdown from Jennifer, but,
But if you want to
I-
hire a part-time staff member who only did short-term rental, then you could cover their staff.
right, and if we could have
That's not a bad idea.
something like something,
Would that be something, I mean, would that work for your town infrastructure? Like if Macy didn't have to do SDRs?
Yeah, so Macy, I think Macy's still on, but Macy has spoken about how a deputy would be really helpful to her. This is a huge undertaking and depending on how the regulations go that are coming down the pipeline, could be more, it could be less. And it's a lot of work. And so, yes, but I mean, part-time are hard to pay to find, but it is a possibility here to look for a part-time employee who is a deputy clerk who focuses purely on short-term rentals.
Then, of course, on the other hand, if we do that, this won't be helping the budget at all, because it'll just be offsetting another employee. Versus if it just comes out of Macy's time, like how it's been, it'll help offset our budget a little bit.
But also when you figure out that 25%, are you just looking at her salary or are you doing like Tom said?
No, that
fully
was
loaded
super fast math over just her salary, not her fringe benefits.
package?
We'd like to then go back and do fringe benefits and then go back and tell you what it is per bedroom.
Yeah. So we might
Which
be
means
looking,
like some larger short-term rentals who are 4 bedrooms are gonna pay more than the 1 bedroom.
Absolutely.
Seems fair to me.
Well, if we're gonna ask Macy to do the work, I think we should generate additional revenue to cover that time.
I don't think you can go above and
I think
beyond.
we got, all we do is, hey, we need to be compensated for that service, and which means.
Yes.
Now, I do wonder if we could ask that host compliance gets covered by the
we
regulatory.
can probably do more than the 300.
Maybe.
Offset host compliance, not that it's like earth shattering.
Yeah.
The service that Macy uses, the host compliance, maybe.
Oh, yeah, host
We
compliance.
could ask if we can cover that. It's $4,000. It's a dream.
Because we don't say that the occupational tax covers that.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, so more to come on that. All right, the last thing is that there's money in our code that we're not sure why we've never charged. It's $2,000, but we'd like to go ahead and go back and ask all liquor establishments to pay their occupational tax for liquor.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
It
I
does.
don't think anyone, so this is already in our code
Back check.
for a very long time. The establishment should be paying a fee for selling liquor, and for some reason it hasn't been enforced, and we were happy to audit our code and realize this is a missed revenue opportunity.
Also, using up and getting charged for something.
Yeah, so how,
Can we back check?
liquor license, no, we get in a year, I mean, what?
So it
20?
ends up being two, but the way the ordinance reads is it's a different amount by liquor type.
Okay.
So it's a total of $2,000 based on how many liquor types we have.
Liquor types.
Based on how many,
So you have like hotel and restaurant license type, you've got a beer, a malt beer license type, and you've got this like manufacturing license type. There's all these different license types, and we charge a certain amount by license type. So
I see.
it's $2,000 for all the different license types.
For,
So it sounds like all the work that it's gonna take is not really gonna be worth the $2,000, but let's get it anyway.
Well, it's, we already sorted out who is it, how much do they owe, we just have to send them an email that says on January 1st, you need to pay us this much.
I mean, liquor is oftentimes, or like alcohol is a very profitable part of the business.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so there's no reason to be.
No.
Do we need to reassess the fees as well?
Don't think you've got really enough time to, but you could.
for next year.
When was this code written? We haven't been charging since then. Like, there's a little bit of a, you know, what do they call it? Inflation associated with
Yeah,
that.
for sure. But I do think it does sound like a next year's budget kind of a thing.
Yeah, I guess I'd hate to go to a liquor establishment and be like,
Like,
oh,
hit
we
the
realized that this
huge
wasn't
fee.
in the code, and we're increasing.
Respect.
So you're saying, oh,
You're
you're
getting a
saying,
double whammy. I
wait,
Yeah.
well then what do you?
Well, you can have them sit down and have a shot before you deliver.
We
Actually,
just
my
wanna.
code is 1997.
1997.
See,
Wow.
this is 1997.
Yeah.
1997.
We do need that.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I do think next year
Yeah,
is,
next year.
is
Yeah.
Oh,
solid.
I'm sure
So
it's
then,
a lot
so now
more.
in 2024?
We're gonna charge by the code the way it's written now.
I
Is what
think,
we'd like
yeah,
to
we'll
do.
have good data by next year.
And then we can increase it for 2025. But I think going and saying, we're about to instate a, yeah. And the other thing that we also are bringing back online, of course, is the plastic bag fee, and that's not in here. But that we'll kind of want to treat like EV chargers, just let the revenue come in and we'll kind of figure it out later. How to spend it. All right, I promise we're getting close.
Have we been able, okay, I mean, slides, is there anything in here on the utility franchise fee that Jennifer, is that?
We are already collecting utility.
Yeah, we're already
franchise
collecting
fee.
it. There's really not much more franchise.
Okay, well,
Nice try though.
Yeah, we looked into it. Not after. All right, last thing, American Rescue Plan. So as a reminder, there are multiple ways to spend ARPA funds. I'm not gonna go through it. We've talked about it many times. The town has $234,326 in ARPA funds. Some of that has been allocated to GRIP. While it is possible we may not use it all for GRIP, pretend like we are, which is easier to do that, leaving a remaining 189,000 and some change. All the jurisdictions working on broadband are coming to the table with 40,000. So I'm going to ask the town of Nederland, partner with Clear Creek and Gilpin and everybody else who's coming with their 40,000, and we match that. Mountain Rides, and Katrina is on. Mountain Rides is asking for 25,000 to bolster and kind of support their program, which is a ridership program moving people from Ward to Nederland to Gilpin. And so she's looking for some additional funds there.
Is that the volunteer rides or is that?
No, that's separate from the volunteer driver program. It's a different transportation program.
What is this?
So Katrina, are you there? Katrina? Okay, maybe not. So so Via Mobility does oh, Katrina, are you there? See you coming off of mute. So Via Mobility funded a program, Mountain Rides that takes people, so it does a ride connection from Ward to Nederland to Gilpin, to really Rollinsville and then back. But there's not enough funding to really amp up this services. They're really running out of funds. And so they're asking jurisdictions to consider adding to their budget the ability to increase ridership by having more drivers, having access to maybe larger vehicles, and then operating in larger spans of time during the day instead of just the kind of the narrow hours they currently have.
This potentially brings people in from those places.
Correct.
Come
Brings
into
people
town.
to Nederland to do their grocery shopping or their medical services, and then also takes them to Rollinsville if they want, or Rollinsville coming into Nederland.
but this would not be sustainable.
Say again?
This would not be sustainable funding. We could only do this once.
Correct. It would be a
Yeah.
one-time support.
It's kind of it's to help with proof of concept, so that we can see where that if we expand the hours in the morning, will people ride it to the RTD bus to take it down to Boulder or Denver? One thing that isn't included in the money we have from them is outreach. So I'm struggling a little bit with how to get the word out since there's no money to advertise or do any kind of outreach. And oh wait, there was a third thing. Oh, and we want to work on getting it more into to Gilpin, to the swimming pool, and reach a little farther outside of Ward. Of the 213 rides that we've done in the last 3 months, most of them, at least 68 of them, have gotten off at BNF. So we think that's great. It's been a huge boon for Ward, and because EFA's not tossing in money this year, I would probably have to go from the 2 days down to a 1 day, where this money would help me fund that 2 more loops, 1 in the morning and 1 at night, so that we could actually be a commuter service for those days and test the commuter part of it. And then Mountain Mobility has promised that they will help us work on going directly to CDOT for funds, and working on funding to make it sustainable. So yeah, we would be using next year, if it's successful, to work with Boulder County to get more money.
Would this be more impactful than giving those funds to EFA or the food pantry, which we just took away?
That's my question.
So I know in the past, there has been conversation about maybe setting aside funds and then letting, I know Trustee Corvallis has talked about this, and letting nonprofits kind of come to us and submit proposals, and then you could decide how you wanted to distribute them. I would just say Katrina's the only one who's asked, and so that's why this is in the slide. No one else has made the ask. So I want to be fair that she did come forward with that request. My recommendation is to hold quite a bit of funding, of course, for affordable housing development, either through incentives or grants, or the actual development of affordable housing. But you could decide to maybe pull out X amount in ARPA and let agencies like EFA and Mountain Rise and all these individuals come forward, and you could provide support to other agencies.
I think it's a better approach.
Okay. I guess the question is how much?
I just, okay, so I would definitely keep a $1.25 for affordable housing, right where it's at. I think that's the big chunk to this. That's really important. The 40 grand for broadband is essential.
Yep.
And I think that doesn't leave much more. That just leaves the 25, right?
Yeah.
But we should make it an open call.
Sure.
Well, yeah, I think Pantry would be back. I think other nonprofits would be. I think this, the Mountain Rides program is valuable. I think leave it in the budget. That's what we have to decide tonight.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you could leave that as 25,000, then we work on kind of an RFP process.
And again, we don't have to
not do the 99%, for the food pantry or whatnot.
Correct.
We don't have to.
But let's leave it, I think let's leave it right where it is in the budget. I think what we're trying to do is get a budget done.
Mm-hmm.
And we can work, then we can, within those constraints, we can do some horse trading.
Well, I have to put in the full amount for ARPA, no matter what. I
Right.
don't care how it's
Right.
divvied up.
It's gonna get spent.
Yeah, and I have to, because if it's not in there, I cannot spend it.
Right, but what we're looking for is the parameters of how we can spend.
I'd
So it
really
sounds
like-
you like the structure, but
Yeah.
not just a straight commitment to Mountain Rides, larger, okay.
But recognizing that Katrina got there first.
Katrina did ask, and I appreciate that she came forward and she asked, and so.
We're building this a lot.
Yep. Okay. All right. What's next? We'll come back to you on the 7th. Reminder, that's a work session only, no regular meeting. It's on the date of your regular meeting, but it's not.
One more question before we.
Okay, we want to go back some slides?
No.
Okay.
The funds that we are accumulating by having everything in C-Safe. The over and above, that's not been accounted for at all in here.
That's part of it. So,
The income part?
right, so you won't see that till we do the budget. So the budget, or I should say this one, we have, obviously the reserves is the 5.5 million that I put on your financials every month. And of that, restricted is the 1.3 million or whatever on slide, whatever.
Yeah.
And that includes CSAFE.
Right, but it's all the revenue that we've been earning on top of.
The interest is.
The interest,
The interest.
right.
That is part of when you see your budget, it's gonna be under your interest line item, and yes, that is included in your budget.
So I guess my question is, okay, so if it's included in the budget, but is it included to offset what's in the general fund, the deficit in the
Yes.
general fund?
It's
that's-
already part of it.
It's already part of it. So the negative 300 and blah, blah, blah is already accounting for that interest
Yes.
revenue that we've been.
Yes. Sorry,
Darn.
All right.
but there's a couple more revenue
What
items
about
now that
selling
we're gonna,
things?
what about what?
Selling some stuff? Like old cars or trucks or the old boiler that's in the barn out there?
I
Look at me,
just
I
think
do
it's hard
numbers.
to Make a huge debt. I mean, we're trying to think of maybe like a large overarching, yeah, sure, everything we sell
Well,
off.
300,000 is not that huge of a
Well,
gap.
it's not if you look at what it was, right? We're at
Right.
246, I think it was,
Under the
the supplemental budget. And, obviously a lot of that is gonna be the wages,
Yeah.
a big part of it.
Dan Martin says that boiler's worth 100,000.
Who?
Dan Martin.
You get 10% if you could sell it.
No, we had somebody else look at it and they were like, cost to take it out of there isn't worth what you're gonna get out of it.
Really?
That was like within.
Jesse
the
knows
past-
how to
That
recommend.
was like
Somebody
within
has
the past
opinion.
month. Talked about it.
Even 40 grand. Okay, so we can't sell it for 100 grand, but sell it for 40 grand.
Yeah, I guess where I would argue is fine, sell it, but do we really want to rush to try to put it into the budget? Or do you just
Right,
understand
that
that we
could
want
be
to,
added
start
revenue,
selling
right.
stuff off? And it just becomes revenue that doesn't get offset in any
Correct.
capacity.
Right.
Like, I think that's a bit of the stabilization is like, you're gonna take a big risk, of course, budgeting so far in the negative, but yeah, everyone's attention is going straight to revenue in the effort to not end at $350,000 in the negative.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you want to sell
And
that schoolhouse?
We're just gonna sell things left, sell them. And that's the goal is not budgeting.
Water.
There's some really good rhubarb in my garden. So that.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that was
That
accounted
is
for,
already
that,
part of
that
it.
interest.
Yeah.
We've yanked
No.
and pulled and
Should sell.
grabbed everything we could. We.
And also the
as close
property
as we could.
taxes obviously are, that's another one. If Proposition H, it's gonna look worse.
Sure,
So
sure.
I went with what's law
By
right now.
30,000. Yeah, I get that. Or 30th, right?
Well, that's gonna pass.
So on the 7th, you'll actually look at the numbers. So we would ask that you
We won't vote for that?
Nice.
come prepared, like while we give you all of the things you asked us for more updates on, we're not doing a full presentation. The point of that is to really dive into the budget. So we ask that you look at it in advance, you ask us questions, come prepared with your questions, because we're not gonna talk line item by line.
So yeah.
We're gonna
I'll do-
talk fund by fund.
Like last year, it'll be every line item, you'll get that, but then all we're gonna talk about on the days, you'll see the summary.
Right.
Okay, so you can have the line items on the side, but if you have questions, ask us before, that would be helpful.
Is that interest that is, sorry, I'm gonna go back to the interest. Is that interest that's on that line item, is that basically what your year to date is at the is that accounting for the whole year's worth of interest that will accrue?
Yes.
It is?
So in other words, and that is,
I'll come back to it over and over again, I
Yeah.
swear.
so I'm obviously using,
What is the
this year.
anticipated revenue?
By the end of this year, it's gonna trend like 50,
Like
60
60
thousand.
grand.
Yeah,
So
It's
for
amazing.
next year, what do we have projected?
consider double, 120.
Consider it.
I mean, I'm not kidding you, like, I mean.
I know you're excited, but what do you have in there right now?
I think I budgeted very conservatively, the same.
Yeah.
Reserves.
Yeah.
So 120 something?
No, I'm doing 60.
Right, but the accumulation will be 60,000 this year.
I don't think it doubles.
No, it doesn't. How much money is in there right now?
So, yeah, we, at 1.5 million and we've made $60,000. Oh, is it already, we will be making 60,000 by the end of this year.
Is this just a bond?
I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry, nothing.
Yeah, I put that in the financials every month, how much interest we've made. I can't
Oh,
remember
yeah,
what.
I call it out every
Yeah.
single board.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Is it like a bond or is it like a savings account with?
It's safe, it's the investment account.
Interest bearing account. We could put more.
That's actually a really good return. I think with the
awesome.
higher interest rates, it's helping on these scenarios right now.
Well, thanks to their very low fees that get that return.
What that we get. Okay, but so basically the 60,000 is offsetting this year's budget. We can't necessarily, we can only assume 60 a grand again next year. It's not a cumulative 120. You get
I
what I'm
wouldn't
saying?
say so. Of course, as 1.5 million, you add the interest. Of course, interest is then based on this, right?
Right.
I can guesstimate what that is, but I'd rather be conservative.
Okay, so you've only done 60.
I'd have to look.
Okay.
But I think so.
Okay.
I could
All
probably
right,
get 10
I'm
grand.
gonna we're coming back to that, because at the end of next year, if it's accumulated to 120,000, that's going to offset. So we would pull that,
But just to be fair, I do divvy that up between all the funds,
Yeah.
okay? It's not just the general fund that gets that, sorry.
So. Do we not make it? Do we not make it that way? I mean, why wouldn't we? Why
So
wouldn't
we do that with all interest. In other words, every fund has the bank account, right?
Mhm.
On the balance sheet. So you take the bank accounts and you divvy it up, the interest based allocation wise, percentage wise. That's.
Okay. All right.
As utility funds wouldn't get
We need to
anything.
think
Get
about
some
this,
this year,
though.
so
As
And could we do,
strategic.
you're part of the general fund.
could we do more than the 1.3 in that CSAVE account?
That's up to you guys. You're committed to 1.5. And so 1 million
It's
is,
totally liquid, from my understanding.
Yeah, we could put more.
A $60,000, I mean, I'm just saying, what else have we invested in that's been able to get us 60,000 in return? Like, I've been watching that every single damn, every time you put out your financial reports, and I'm just like, that's gold right there.
Bob, be happy if I call them.
So yeah, if we just carry the trend, if we just continue on with what we've done this year, we
I
could
mean,
easily do 120 next
you
year.
we should put all of our money in there if it's liquid.
I agree.
Well, there's, I don't, between the two funds we invested, it's not, one of them is, we can liquidate within a month, and the other one, I think they need like 3 or 6 months, but anyhow.
Okay, yeah, but maybe not all of it, but I mean, it seems like free money.
But we could, like I said, what's 5.5 less?
Could that be something else? You guys just come to us with a recommendation, like, I mean,
Just a
Totally.
scenario.
just a scenario. I mean,
And then we could, then I could up my budget a little bit.
Right.
2024, an interest.
and that's what I'm trying to figure out is like the creative NDDA,
Yeah.
CSAFE, what are all the creative ways? Because it is gonna take like 20,000 here, 30,000
Right,
here, or
right.
whatever,
That's a good idea.
or 60,000 or whatever. So,
Okay,
so
I
a
like
couple of
that.
scenarios might be just helpful to look at.
okay. See safe.
Thanks.
All right.
Good call.
So next meeting will be the 7th, so we'll release, when we release the budget, just ask that, again, we don't go through the whole line item, but we'll do this again, but with all those figures. Then on the 21st, which is your regular board meeting, we'll have this as a discussion item to probably fine tune any things. You do have a special session set for November on November 28th, which is the special public hearing for your budget. And then we're aiming to adopt the budget on December 5th. But if you're not ready, December 12th is the last day, and it would be a special meeting that has to get adopted.
And November 7th is a voting day.
November 7th is election day. I don't know Dawn, but it is election day.
Yeah,
was
is
the
she still here?
Yeah, Dawn,
Oh.
are you using this room for election day? Because their next meeting is on election day.
No,
Okay, great.
only general election
Okay.
and midterm.
Okay, it'll be in.
It's hybrid only, it says here. Oh, hybrid, duh.
Yeah.
Well, that's assuming, of course, quorum leads to an in-person component. So,
Miranda, let's put some money in the budget for a better board.
For better what?
We're subjective.
well, that's it needs some.
Computer to
No, I'm not.
Don't spill anything.
Okay. I just want to say
It's late,
thank you
question.
for everyone sticking with
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
hearing the yawns. I know it's painful. I'm so sorry, but this has been good work.
We do appreciate those online. We have a lot of work to do, so Rita and I will go do that work, and we look forward to releasing the budget to you that Friday, so Friday the 3rd, when you'll see it. If we can do it sooner, we will, but that's the latest you'll get it.
Take your time.
Want to make sure you get out on Friday though, so that you have at least 5 days to look at all of your line items. So, okay, well, we did it.
Everybody.
Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you.
Bye to those of you online.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah.